Meeting this November 19th, 2024. Unfortunately, our pastor wasn't able to come this morning, so we are going to do a moment of silence, and that will be followed by the pledge. Please join me in our moment of silence. Thank you. You may now rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and our meeting is now called to order, and I will turn things over to John Peterson, our zoning manager, to walk us through today's agenda.
And thank you, Madam Chair and Board. The hearing today will be conducted with the following process and procedure. Each case will be called in numerical order. When the case is called, we would ask that the applicant please stand and raise their hand to show that they are in attendance. After that, we're going to call to see if there's anyone here opposed to that specific case. We would also ask anyone opposed, please stand and raise their hand so they can be counted for the official record. Then after recognizing both parties will be asked to come forward to be sworn in. The applicant will testify first, and then the opposition, if any, will testify second. It's important to note that each side gets 10 minutes to state their case or concerns. There's not a process to reserve your time, and there's not a rebuttal process. So you need to convey all your information to the board within your 10-minute time period. Additionally, if there's more than one person who wishes to speak on an issue, you may want to coordinate with each other about what you're going to talk about, because each side only gets 10 minutes, and you don't want to cover the same information over and over. After that, the board will start to discuss the case at hand. From the discussion, they may ask one or more speakers to come back to the podium for additional comments or questions. After that, the board will make a decision to either approve, deny, hold, or continue the matter at hand. There is one case on today's printed agenda which has been withdrawn without prejudice, and this case will not be heard. That's LUP 37 of 2024, Marbell Angarita. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice. It will not be heard today. Additionally, there are a number of cases on today's printed agenda which have been either held or continued by the staff of the Planning Commission, and these cases will not be heard today. First case is rezoning case Z2 of 2024, Flournoy Development Group, LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the December 3rd, 2024 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z2 of 2024 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z37 of 2024, Bosco IKEA Canaan. This case was continued by the Planning Commission until the December 3rd, 2024 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z37 of 2024 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z40 of 2024, Elite Engineering. This case was continued by the staff until the December 3rd, 2024 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z40 of 2024 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z43 of 2024, Campus Realty Advisors, LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the December 17th, 2024 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So Z43 of 2024 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z44 of 2024, Manor Restorations, LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the December 3rd, 2024 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z44 of 2024 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z63 of 2024, Whataburger Restaurants, LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the December 3rd, 2024 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z63 of 2024 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z64 of 2024, Lost Mountain Baptist Church, Inc. This case was continued by the staff until the December 3rd, 2024 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z64 of 2024 will not be heard today. OSC1 of 2024, Post and Properties, Inc. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the December 3rd, 2024 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So OSC1 of 2024 will not be heard today. LUP 35 of 2024, Latrice West. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the December 3rd, 2024 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So LUP 35 of 2024 will not be heard today. LUP 36 of 2024, Jose P. Garcia. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the December 3rd, 2024 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So LUP 36 of 2024 will not be heard today. LUP 39 of 2024, Julius C. Seymour. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the December 3rd, 2024 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So LUP 39 of 2024 will not be heard today. LUP 40 of 2024, Lucas A. Dos Santos Arujo. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the December 3rd, 2024 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So LUP 40 of 2024 will not be heard today. LUP 41 of 2024, Maya Moore as trustee of the Maya Moore Declaration of Trust dated July 20th, 2017. This case was continued by the staff until the December 3rd, 2024 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So LUP 41 of 2024 will not be heard today. SLUP 9 of 2024, Campus Realty Advisors LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the December 17th, 2024 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So SLUP 9 of 2024 will not be heard today. Other business item number 44 of 2024, Hilltop Rough Snow LLC and Hilltop TSE LP. This case was this case was continued by the staff until the December 17th, 2024 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So other business item number 44 of 2024 will not be heard today. Other business item number 64 of 2024, K.A. Marietta LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the December 17th, 2024 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So other business item number 64 of 2024 will not be heard today. And finally, other business item number 73 of 2024, Whataburger Restaurants LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the December 17th, 2024 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So other business item number 73 of 2024 will not be heard today. Madam Chair and Board, I did get two requests last night to continue two other cases. First case is rezoning case Z62, Scott Moore. The applicant would like more time to work on their concept, Madam Chair and Board. So the staff would ask the board to continue this case until your December 17th, 2024 zoning hearing.
Okay, Commissioner Gambrill.
I'd like to make a motion that we add Z62 to the to continue Z62 to the December 17th, 2024 hearing.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Second case is rezoning case Z65 of 2024, Trejo Soccer Academy LLC. The applicant needs more time to address some community concerns, Madam Chair and Board. So the staff would ask the board to continue rezoning case Z65 of 2024 until your December 17th rezoning hearing.
Commissioner Sheffield.
I make a motion to continue Z65 2024 to the December 17th, 2024 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing.
Second, and just discussion. Do we need to ask if their opposition is here or support for either of those two cases?
The
before we-
commissioner can ask if they would like.
Well,
Is
Kelly
there-
has
is-
one to. Pardon?
Okay, let's do one thing at a time. We have discussion.
Yours was first.
Let me ask Commissioner
sorry.
Sheffield the question that Commissioner Burrow asked. Do you want to ask if there's anyone here in opposition or support?
Is there anyone here in support of Z65 other than the applicant, Adam? Is anyone here in opposition to Z65? Okay.
Okay.
Which is mixed, but we've already had
That's noted.
discussions. Yeah.
Okay. And we had a prior matter for Commissioner Gamble. It was Z62. Was anyone here in opposition to Z62? And anyone here that was in support of Z62? Thank you. Are you the applicant, sir? Okay, thank you. All right. Commissioner Burrow, you had another matter?
No, just.
Okay, Commissioner Gamble?
I forgot to ask the clerk to record my statement as you have on file.
Okay.
Sorry, me too.
Commissioners, do you have any other matters to discuss before I call the question? Call the question. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And before we start the hearing, I do have two more announcements. All the folks that are here today, please turn your cell phones volume on mute or off. When the phones ring, it does interfere with the broadcast and the presentations. And I want to remind applicants, opposition, or any interested party that information is due to this board the Wednesday prior to this hearing. Any information submitted after the Wednesday due date may or may not be considered by the board at their discretion. And with that, Madam Chair and Board, I'm ready to start the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Cobb County Board of Commissioners zoning hearing consent agenda for November 19th, 2024. First case on consent is rezoning case Z55 of 2024. Irma V. Palacios requests a rezoning from CF to R12 for a single-family residence in land lots 278 and 299 of the 17th District. The property is located on the northwest corner of South Cobb Drive and Waldrop Circle, north of Dink Lane. Staff recommends approval of Z55 to the R12 zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number one, single-family residential use only. Number two, the existing shed for personal storage use only. Number three, submission of a modified site plan showing a reduction of existing impervious area within 60 days to the district commissioner, or if unavailable, the county chair, with work to begin within 30 days of the commissioner approval. Number four, setback variances only as stated in the zoning comments and recommendations. Number five, fire department comments and recommendations. Number six, water and sewer division comments and recommendations. Number seven, stormwater management division comments and recommendations. And number eight, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z55? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Rezoning case Z59 of 2024, Maynard S. Gomez Ramirez requests a rezoning from PSC to LI for an office and warehouse in land lot 59 of the 17th District. The property is located on the northeast corner of Austell Road and Brackett Street. Staff recommends deletion of Z59 to the NRC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number one, the district commissioner or if unavailable, the county chair to approve the final site plan. Number two, variances as stated in the zoning comments and recommendations. Number three, adherence to the Austell Road design guidelines specific to building improvements. Number four, billboard signage to be ground-based. Number five, final elevations to be approved by the district commissioner. Number six, cleanup of the property within 60 days of approval by the Board of Commissioners. Number seven, work vehicles to be parked in the rear or inside the building, not in the front. Number eight, use restrictions. Uses not permitted include the following: emissions or inspection stations and light automotive repair establishments. Number nine, fire department comments and recommendations. Number 10, water and sewer division comments and recommendations. Number 11, stormwater management division comments and recommendations. And number 12, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? The applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z59? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Rezoning case Z60 of 2024, Probity 1 LLC requests rezoning from UVC to R20 for a single-family residential in land lot 859 of the 16th District. The property is located on the west side of Bells Ferry Road, north of Turner Road. Staff recommends approval of Z60 to the R20 zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number one, fire department comments and recommendations. Number two, stormwater management division comments and recommendations. Number three, water and sewer division comments and recommendations. And number four, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z60? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Rezoning case Z61 of 2024, New Era Hispanic Services Incorporated, requests a rezoning from CF to NRC for a professional office and contractor's office in land lot 702 of the 19th District. The property is located on the east side of Austell Road, north of Byers Drive. Staff recommends approval of Z61 to the NRC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number one, site plan received by the zoning division on September 5th, 2024, with the district commissioner, or if unavailable, the county chair approving minor modifications. Number two, professional office and specialized contractor with a special exception use permitted. Number 3, no outdoor storage. Number 4, variance for parking on a non-hardened treated surface as stated in the zoning comments and recommendations. Number 5, 10-foot landscape screening buffer and 6-foot solid wooden or masonry privacy fence along the eastern property line. Number 6, adherence to the Austell Road design guidelines. Number 7, all refuse and designated recycling collection location facilities must be contained within a completely enclosed facility. Number 8, Planning Division comments and recommendations. Number 9, Fire Department comments and recommendations. Number 10, Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. Number 11, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. And number 12, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z61? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Chair, I'd like to make some revisions, please. And Robin, I'll forward this to you. But for STIP number 2, for professional office and specialized contractor, insert the words paint and remodeling between specialized and contractor. Also, condition number 3, revise it to reflect no outside storage, including remodeling materials. And finally, the storage shed is to be used to store paint supplies. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant amenable to those changes? Yeah, thank you. The applicant gave a thumbs up.
Thank you. Okay, next case is LEP 38 of 2024. Chelsea Hurst requests a temporary land use permit renewal for a gardens crafts business to sell at farmers markets in land lot 535 of the 16th district. The property is located on the west side of Missy Drive, north of Shelby Lane. Staff recommends approval of LEP 38 for 24 months, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, adherence to all code requirements for customary home occupations, not in conflict. Number 2, no sales from this location. Number 3, no exterior signs. And number 4, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LEP 38? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And moving into other business cases on the consent agenda. First case is other business item number 49 of 2024, which is to consider amending the site plan stipulations for Amanda Benetti and STNL Development regarding rezoning application Z20 of 2006. The property is located at the southeast corner of Powder Springs Road and Milford Church Road in land lot 549 of the 19th district. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, revised site plan received November 11th, 2024, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Number 2, building elevations received November 11th, 2024, with the district commissioner approving the final elevations. Number 3, Cobb DOT comments last revised October 22nd, 2024. Number 4, fire department comments contained in the other business packet. And number 5, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 49? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business item number 68 of 2024 is to consider amending the site plan for Carlos Iglesias regarding rezoning application Z118 of 1996. The property is located at the east side of Floyd Road, north of White Boulevard, and land lot 31 and 42 of the 17th district. Staff recommends approval, subject to number 1, site plan received September 18th, 2024, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Number 2, fire comments. Number 3, Cobb DOT comments. Number 4, stormwater management comments. And number 5, district commissioner approved the final building elevations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 68?
You do have a couple of them.
Okay, 2 people opposed. So we'll pull that one off consent and put it in its regular order. Okay, next item is other business item number 69 of 2024, which is consider a reduction in public road frontage from 75 feet to 0 feet and variances for gravel drives and setbacks for existing accessory structures for Stephen Rogers. The property is located on the north end of Trail Road, south of Due West Road, in landlots 298 and 311 of the 20th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, road frontage is reduced to 0 feet. Number two, variance is approved for the gravel driveway and accessory structures as shown on the site plan received October 1st, 2024. Number three, stormwater management comments. And number four, fire department comments. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 69? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business item number 70 of 2024 is to consider amending the site plan for Nate Dunnington regarding rezoning application 167 of 1987. The property is located on the north side of East-West Connector, east of Hospital South Drive, in land lot 921 of the 19th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, site plan received October 4th, 2024, with the District Commissioner approving minor modifications. Number two, fire department comments. Number three, water and sewer comments. Number four, stormwater management comments. And number five, District Commissioner to approve the final building elevations. Is the applicant present? Is the applicant here for other business number 70, Nate Dunnington? Is there anyone here opposed to this case? The applicant is not present. Madam Chair.
Okay. Yes, what would the commissioner like to do in this instance? Typically, we do reach out.
Yeah, if we could reach out to Mr., actually, it's Aiken.
Okay. So we'll call him up, see if he can
Okay,
show.
thanks.
Okay, so we'll pull that one off consent for the time being. Okay, next case is other business item number 71 of 2024, which is consider a reduction in required minimum public road frontage from 75 feet to 20 feet for Track 2, access on gravel driveway and accessory structure variances for Track 1 for the Ruby and David Broll Living Trust. The property is located on the south side of Ebenezer Road, southeast of Fawn Trail, in land lot 415 of the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, road frontage for Track 2 reduced to 20 feet. Number two, variances approved for the gravel driveway and accessory structures as shown on the site plan received October 10th, 2024. Number three, stormwater management comments. Number four, water and sewer comments. Number five, fire department comments. And number six, Cobb DOT comments. Is the applicant present? The director show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 71? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And the final case on consent is other business item number 72 of 2024, which is to consider amending the site plan for Lycea Hyundai regarding rezoning application Z73 of 2022. The property is located on the south side of I-20 and on the north side of Interstate West Parkway in land lot 583 of the 18th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, site plan received October 14th, 2024, with the District Commissioner approving minor modifications. Number two, fire department comments. Number three, water and sewer comments. Number four, stormwater management comments. And number five, all previous stipulations not in conflict to remain in effect. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 72? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And that completes the consent agenda, Madam Chair and Board.
Thank you, John. Commissioners, do you have any other matters to address for consent?
Yes, well, it looks like Terry is still out calling the applicant for OB 70, but I would like to move one to consent, and that's Z9. But
Okay.
I also have, hold on, I thought I had some conditions on here as well. Okay.
Okay.
If we can, John.
All right, we
and-
go ahead and call the case if there's no one opposed to
Okay,
it.
perfect.
All right, rezoning case Z9 of 2024, Thomas Orrick requests rezoning from CRC and R20 to RM8 for a townhome community in land lot 1300 of the 19th District. The property is located on the northwest corner of Veterans Memorial Highway and Burris Road. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z9?
Okay.
Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Okay, thank you. This one has been on the docket since March, so I think we had a fair amount of time to work through the details. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve Z9, 2024, to the deletion from RM8 to RA5 with the following conditions. And Robin, once again, I'll forward these to you because there are a few here. But the home shall be craftsman-style architecture with the following specifications. Each unit has a different color, a variety of styles of porch or roof lines, and a mix of siding materials. Every other unit must not have a flat facade. Some portion must extend from the front plane of the building, and these details have been worked out with the applicant. End units must have an architectural feature that extends outward from the side plane of the building, such as a bay window, roof, or other architectural feature. Final elevations, including colors, to be approved by the district commissioner. All debris to be removed from the property within 30 days of the Board of Commissioners' application approval. An Amigo Furniture building to be demolished within 120 days of the Board of Commissioners' application approval, and all other staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. And that concludes my motion.
Okay, so the applicant, for those who are observing remotely, did give a thumbs up to those conditions that were added. Okay, is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Any further discussion? I'll call the question. The motion carries 5-0. Thanks, Commissioner. Are there any other matters to address for consent, Commissioners?
Chair, it's my understanding that the applicant has come into the room for other business item number 70, Nate Dunnington.
Okay.
Are you here? Yes, he's
Okay.
here.
Okay, and there was no one in opposition?
Correct.
Okay, so we'll keep that on consent.
Yes. You want me to reread it?
Yeah. We'll keep it on consent, but I do have a couple of
Okay.
additions.
Okay.
The landscape plan to be approved by the county arborist and the district commissioner, and revise step number 5 to reflect that the district commissioner to approve the final building elevations to include color and materials.
All right, thank you. Is the applicant amenable to those additional conditions? Thank you. All right, Commissioners, one last call. All right, with that, Commissioners, I move that we approve the consent agenda as it has been revised, recognizing that other business item 68 has been pulled from the consent agenda, and that Z9 has also been added to consent. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 5-0. For those of you who are here as part of the consent agenda, you are free to leave at this time unless you just would like to observe the rest of the zoning hearing. And have a happy Thanksgiving as well. You're welcome. I'm sure it'll be much happier knowing that your matters are approved on consent. You can go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair and Board, the next zoning case has a companion special land use permit with it. Would it be the board's desire to hear both cases together and then just make separate motions on both cases?
I'm sorry. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes.
Okay, rezoning case Z25 of 2024, LCD Acquisitions LLC, Town Park Renaissance LLC. Request rezoning from OMR to RRC for purpose-built student housing in land lots 358 and 363 of the 16th District. The property is located on the east side of Town Park Drive, north of Town Park Lane, together with the special land use permit, SLEP 6 of 2024, LCD Acquisitions LLC, Town Park Renaissance LLC. Request a special land use permit for the purpose of purpose-built student housing in land lot 358 and 363 of the 16th District. The property is located on the east side of Town Park Drive, north of Town Park Lane. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to SLUP 6 or Z25? Please stand up and raise your hands. Okay, let the record show there's 9 people here opposed to Z25 and SLUP 6. Is there anyone here in support of rezoning case Z25 and SLUP 6? Please stand up and raise your hands. Let the record show there's 6 people here in support. All those who would like to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Parks of the law firm of Sams, Larkin & Huff, and I represent Landmark in relation to this student housing case. And to begin with, I'd like to kind of bring a little context to what we're doing here. Over the weekend, I've been monitoring the Kennesaw State Housing Facebook group, and there was a post this weekend of freshman parents trying to figure out where their sophomore would live. KSU has not and will not provide on-campus housing. The last dorm they built was conceived in 2018 and opened in 2023. It provided 500 beds, but here's the kicker. Those 500 beds are for freshmen only. So great, you get your freshman year, but what do you do after that? So this is a dialogue, and I'm going to read it to you because this is not what has been heard by this board. This is the question: where do my sophomores live? Keep in mind that on-campus housing for upperclassmen is extremely limited, at least 1,000 waiting lists. Also, some of the dorms are long overdue for renovations. If your daughter already has a group of friends for roommates, it seems like off-campus would be ideal. Next comment. I think it's difficult for sophomores to get on-campus housing, especially if they want to live together. Our student's son and his roommate moved to blank. They can walk to campus, and apartment is really nice. Next one. If they want to live together, off-campus is the only option. Because what happens is you have a lot of the dorms on campus are designed for freshmen or designated for freshmen only. In the upperclassmen dorms, you can't choose where you want to live or who your roommates are because they're onesies and twosies here and there, and there's a 1,000-person waiting list. That's what we're talking about. That's the voice that is not being heard. That is what the issue is. This is the rendering that you've seen before. This is a revised rendering. What we did after the last meeting is we reduced the bedroom count by 118. And when I said that to a lot of folks, the immediate response is, that's great. That's a 118 bed reduction. That is a significant reduction. I actually look at it, that's really sad. That's 118 students that won't be able to live here. But because of the request of the commission, we did reduce it by 118 bed. That our density is 69 units per acre, which is consistent with the other projects. So we're now down to 643 beds. Our density is 69.8 units per acre. By comparison, the SOVA is 97, U-Point is 68. All the other ones that are structured parking are more dense than we are. So we did what you asked. We brought it in line, and we are the very bottom of student housing density, and that is what we've done. This is the layout. I want to point out something here. One of the other things that we were asked is, how are we going to handle the buffering to the south? There's a multifamily apartment to the south that is opposed to this project because they think that their apartment renters don't want to live close to other apartment renters, but they're here opposed. And it was asked that what buffering will we do between us two? It's harder to see on this one right now, but you can see our fire lane is the very southern portion of our property. Their fire lane is the very northern portion of their property. We will match their buffering to our buffering. That's exactly what this board does in typical situations. We will have fencing and landscaping, and we will work with that developer, but there is absolutely no reason why we should be creating more buffer for them. If I'm being honest, we might be worried about their residents catcalling our young co-eds. But we don't talk like that, because that's not the way you present these issues. We will respect them as much as they will respect us. We've got our fire lanes back to back. That is an appropriate way to create the transition between these two developments. We know that KSU does not provide the housing. These are the pie charts you've seen before. There's on-campus housing. Again, I walked you through it. They built a 500-person dorm for freshmen. That doesn't do a whole lot when they become sophomores. This chart isn't getting better. Now, KSU says, oh, well, we've got a lot of students that are online, but they don't answer the question, are they online because they want to be, or because they don't have housing close to campus, so they're going online? I think the answer is they would prefer, if possible, to attend classes and be located close to campus. We've talked about the shuttle. We have details about what the shuttle would do. You can see here, what is really key here is this property is in a regional activity center between two interstates north of Chastain Road, lined up with the $15 million investments in the skip span bridge. The shuttle will run back and forth. We have revised our trip generation report based on 643 beds. You can see here that a 30-passenger shuttle will more than handle the traffic that is expected to be impacted by this development. So in terms of your question last time is the 30-passenger shuttle running around trip back and forth to campus, the mile to the heart of the academic campus? Yes, that will provide sufficient capacity based upon our traffic study. Now, you're going to hear opposition say, traffic, 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 we're worried about traffic. This is the traffic numbers based upon the old higher count before we reduced it by 118 beds. Now, I know y'all are very familiar with impacts on Johnson Ferry Road and Roswell Road, Bells Ferry Road, Chastain Road. You don't see any Fs. You see A's, B's, C's, and D's. I think only one category slipped one designation from a C to a D. This is not a traffic problem. And in fact, the traffic problems are the surface roads that are beyond this that are helped by putting students close to campus. That is a positive way to impact traffic. And we've talked about the fact that you've got multiple ways to get to and from campus. Skip span bridge, our density comparison is good. We've shown you that we have a rooftop amenity package, and we are in compliance with the land use plan. I want to point out that your professional staff looked at this and recommended approval because it is consistent with the purpose and goals of the land use plan. I do want to bring up the CID was brought up here and asked a question about what's your thoughts about this? And the CID noted that this would come off their rolls if it converted from office to residential, and that they wouldn't collect the money that they want. They were worried about that impact on them. Well, some new information. This is not on the CID roll. It has not and does not pay towards the CID. So this is the perfect property to convert to residential because you don't have the problem of the CID. So if you're going to look at converting a property, this is the one to do because it has zero impact on the CID. But you know who wins? Cobb County taxpayers. Right now, this is a 40-year-old office building that is at the end of its life cycle. It needs to be redeveloped. It is a declining value asset. The county collects roughly $100,000 a year on county taxes. If this project was approved, not only would it provide housing for students, it will provide $600,000 in taxes to Cobb County. So the taxpayers win here, and the CID doesn't lose because this is not on the CID roll. Want to address quickly, I think the opposition's got, we were asked, Will this have an impact on property values? We hired a certified real estate appraiser who prepared a report. So in his professional opinion, as a certified Georgia real estate appraiser, that it does not. Now, I understand they're going to get up here and tell you all horrible things about that appraiser. A couple things I want to point out. Number one, he is certified by the state of Georgia. He has a professional opinion, and he's got a professional license to make that opinion. Number two, he has been an expert witness for hundreds of times in testifying in superior courts of Cobb County and the surrounding counties. And number three, he is a frequently hired appraiser by Cobb County DOT for appraising DOT. So they're going to get up here and try to tell you all horrible things about the appraisal report, but we were asked, does it impact values? We sought a professional opinion. So in closing, I'd like to say, remember the people that what we're trying to address, and that is a critical housing need for students and upperclassmen students. This is a great opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from opposition. I observed 3 people get sworn in opposition. Just be mindful of the time, because all 3 of you will have to share 10 minutes. Thank you.
All right. Hi. I've met with most of you guys, so hello again. My name is Taylor Hawk, and I'm one of the owners of 108 Town Park Drive, which is the direct neighbor of this rezoning case, sharing a property line. Thank you guys for your time today. I don't really want to speak to density because this really is not about density. It's about an incompatible use and the county giving fair and equitable treatment to 2 property owners by following the precedent set with our rezoning. If precedent is not followed, then the county, through zoning regulations, is favoring one property over another and giving us an unfair competitive market disadvantage. This case has been heard through several planning commissions, several board of commissions meetings, and have gone for almost 9 months, and there's been not one motion to approve. In fact, quite the opposite. Uniform and unanimous opposition. We love students. We all love students. But we know what students bring. They think they're quiet. They're not. They think they're clean. They're not. It's just, students live differently. They want to live with friends, as Parks just mentioned, which is great. When I met with Chairwoman Cupid yesterday, it was brought up that there are residential neighborhoods that have restrictions, and I won't speak too much to it because you were speaking about it, but where single-family homes can't have but 2 adults that are related to each other living there. What is that intended to do? Eliminate students from renting those single-family homes. Why? Because the single-family neighbors don't want to live around students. Not that we don't love students, but they're loud. All the things that come with it. So imagine being a homeowner and having that restriction on you to where you can't rent your house to students, and then coming in and your neighbor getting to put in 600 beds, and you not being able to then rent to students. It's an unfair disadvantage, and treating 2 owners differently. That said, if this were to go through, a density closer to the retreat, which was another landmark property, or the recent rezoning at Campus Realty, around 25 to 26 units per acre, I think would be more appropriate for this area. The densities mentioned are over on George Busby, not directly in this area. And as it was shown, there was a landscape buffer. We do feel this is important, given that we are directly next door sharing a property line. We feel it would need to be raised to match our property, and we understand that would take work with the applicant. But as I mentioned, at the end of the day, we feel this is an incompatible use, and we are opposed, and we also want to reserve our constitutional rights to appeal. So appreciate everyone's time. Thank you.
There's a balance of 6 minutes and 45 seconds.
Right. Good morning. Thank you for hearing us today, commissioners. Next. So we have three main oppositional points here. First of all is KSU enrollment is decreasing, and they are not responsible, and they are the ones that are responsible for providing the housing. There are 48,000 students spread across 2 campuses. The breakdown is 25% live with family, 25% take online classes, about 40% have some form of online or hybrid, and this is the way education is going. A lot of people choose to do things remotely. This number has increased over the years and will continue to do so. There are currently 6,000 on-campus beds, and there is an identified need for only 1,500 more. Currently, there's 7,000 PBSH beds. You combine that with the 6,000, there are 13,000 PBSH and KSU beds. This does not take into account all of the available apartment supply in the area. Number 2, stipulations. The county cannot enforce stipulations because the county code does not address these very issues. It is a fact that the proposed development will significantly increase traffic, and yet they're not responsible for making any road improvements, and the county hasn't expressed any desire to improve that situation. The shuttle bus cannot be used to calculate the amount of traffic because it's not enforceable, so it really is irrelevant completely. One way to ensure that the applicant will add these buses is to follow the PBSH SLUP and limit their parking spaces to 241. Number 3, violation of the Steinberg Act and PBSH SLUP. There's 2 points. There's valid reason to deny this rezoning because it does not meet the minimum requirements of the Steinberg Act. It is not suitable use, and it will adversely affect adjacent and nearby properties. The existing property already has a reasonable economic use as currently zoned, and rezoning it will most definitely cause an excessive and burdensome use of our roads. It will result in a nuisance defined under state law, and the BOC has denied in the past fuel sales next to residential areas. What is lawful is not necessarily appropriate. Why have some gas stations been, why haven't some rezonings favored gas stations? Well, it's because they create a nuisance. That same nuisance is what we're looking at when we live next to 600 students. Would any of you like to live next to 600 students? Any of you? I doubt it. So, next slide. Next slide. Oh, sorry about that. So student housing, this study that was provided, we're not going to eviscerate the appraiser. We're just going to point out some of the things that the appraiser said, okay? So building student housing offers, students is equipped with a lifestyle that is designed to promote education. And then we talk about the preference of living with friends. That has nothing to do with education. Then it talks about students, this study in Connecticut, students that live on campus have higher GPAs. This is not on campus, this is off campus. This study is going to talk about students who live on campus in an RA monitored environment, not a party house with their friends with 6 pods and who knows what else, right? And then it says university students are not only centers of education, but also sources of local employment. I don't know what that means, and I don't think he knows what it means either. Next slide. Okay, and this research methodology. So we looked at 11 student housing facilities, but we only cite 2 pairwise comparisons. So I don't understand where the depth of research provides anything that tells us about adverse effects or not adverse effects. Their conclusion says that student housing has no effect. This data doesn't rebut that claim at all with 2 data points. So let's go to the next slide and look at those data points. So this map shows the 1,000-foot distance from the proposed development and our townhomes. That's 1,000 feet with a direct line of access in front of our homes. Adjacent to those parking spaces, that is the existing apartment complex. Next slide. Now let's look at their comparables. Their comparables show how much effort one would need to take to leave that PBSH to enter into the adjoining community. They have to go out of their way. Why would they do that? And then look at the distances. These distances are double the distances that we're talking about when we compare these guys over here to us. It's double the distance, and then you have a tree line providing a nice sound buffer. Again, there's no reason for anyone to go into that community. The difference in the appraised values was less than 2.5%. I could achieve that by installing a nice countertop. Nice try. Let's go to the next slide, please. Then this one here, it shows another one of their comparables. This route has restricted usage or private roads. So you see how far you have to go out of your way to affect the neighbors here? This is even a greater distance than the previous one. And guess what? The differences between their, quote, proximity and non-proximity properties was less than 1%. That, amount of small variance could be due to just the color of the blinds in the house. I mean, it's ridiculous. So let's go to the next slide. This appraisal was given to us just a few hours ago, and I stayed up all night showing that it doesn't show anything. Thanks, guys. Now look at this. These are crime statistics. Non-KSU student housing in 2 consecutive years increased 10% in crime. This is across several PBSHs. One of them had a murder. Sorry for the misspelling. Cooper Social had a murder a few years
Sir,
ago.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. If we could stop the clock for a moment.
Yes.
Ma'am, did you desire to speak?
No, she's.
She's with you? Okay, I didn't know
Thanks.
that. You have about one,
Can I
I
get
just
those
wanted
20
to ask
seconds back?
that. Yes.
So on-campus housing had a 26% decrease, okay? So that's a 26% decrease in crime on campus, where we see a 10% increase off campus. This is a clear distinction about the difference from living on campus versus this, quote, we're student-oriented living off campus. So this is clear statistics provided by local law enforcement. Next slide. And these are the types of crimes that were committed. So of the 80 types of offenses, the 20 types shown here accounted for 60% of all the crime. Just look at the list. Obstruction, abandoned vehicle, alcohol, underage alcohol use, animal cruelty, battery, burglary, criminal trespass, damage, destruction, vandalism of property, drug, narcotic violations, entering auto, hit and run, noise complaints, robbery, theft, wanted person located, weapons law violations, and you see the heat map. We're right in the center of that, please. This is a picture of what it looks like outside of our homes currently, with the trees cut down. Now, right next to that, we're gonna have more trees cut down. We're gonna have 2 massive developments right next to each other. Ridiculous. Next slide. This is what we're looking at in the future. We're looking at these towering buildings that's gonna block our sunlight on our morning jogs when we wanna see some sunlight in the morning.
Sir,
The
your
first
time
thing
is
we do.
run. Thank you. Please state your name for the record. Some of our.
Robin Grajeda.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, and certainly it's been a long journey with this particular zoning, so appreciate everybody's patience with it. I only have a few questions to bring up, just for clarity's sake, and then certainly we'll open it up to the commissioners. But I did have the privilege of getting some of this information as far as some of the changes that were proposed as well, so my questions are limited. But yes, I have one question for you, well, 2. So the first thing is related to, one of the requirements that I had for this follow-up was to show how you achieved the 69.8, or the 70 at the time it was articulated, and what that unit mix looked like for the purpose of transparency on that. And then secondly was, there was a question about security, being on the premises for 24/7 security. And just curious if there had been any work done on that to meet what's required there, because I think the original answer was courtesy officer or
Yeah, we-
hired student, and so just, are we meeting a higher standard for security presence on the?
First off, you have a purpose-built student housing code that requires 24-hour security, and we will comply with this code. We are not asking for a single variance from the purpose-built student housing code. Second of all, we will have a couple of rooms that will be designated for law enforcement to be able to live in. Either KSU police officers or Cobb County officers will be directed to live within the unit. We will also have 24-hour on-campus representation by the management company. So yes, we will have 24/7 security. I also want to point out that we are very concerned about the safety and security of our students. There is zero, if you look at FBI crime statistics, there is zero evidence that students commit crimes at any greater rate. But we are concerned about our students being victims of crime, the auto break-ins and things like that. This product is an interior corridor product, which is safer because everyone has to go into the building and go through cameras and security, and they have RFID pass codes for the residents, and they also assign those to guests. So this is not a party house. I don't know where that has come from. This is a tightly controlled environment. We also have the parking garage, which again has one access point and will greatly reduce the chances of car break-ins and things like that, because you have to enter into a garage with good security cameras and such. So I want to address that very clearly. So we will be very secure. We're concerned about the security for our residents, because there is zero evidence that our residents are committing crimes. There is evidence that the one demographic that commits crime at a less rate is college graduates. So let's work together, increase the number of college graduates. That's how we reduce crime. Your second question,
Unit mix.
the unit mix. So the unit mix is 3 studios, 9 one-bedrooms, 17 two-bedrooms, 3 four-bedroom, 4, gotta reverse myself, dyslexic, 4 three-bedroom units, 76 four-bedroom units, 37 five-bedroom, and 16, less than 10%, will be the 6-bedroom clusters. I want to, and that email from the Facebook, or the posting from Facebook is very informative. This is not laid out for a fraternity or anything like this. You know what this is laid out for? 4 lacrosse, or 6 lacrosse players that have a similar schedule, similar interests. They can live, each one with a private bathroom, and each one with a common.
Excuse me. There has been a lot of chatter from those in opposition that has occurred, and I would just like for it to stop, or you can step outside and get all of that out your system and come back in the room, but it's distracting.
So this is the 6-person KSU housing. This is 4 bedrooms, 6 people. They're double occupancy bedrooms. So if you're a freshman and you live in one of these and your 6 roommates all get along, you're not going to move up to upper class housing. So you know what? This is a lot better a housing option.
Hold on. Is normally not distracting, but my brain is distracted a little bit by the entrance of, we have a lot of people that are coming in, so.
And I would just say, Commissioner, I know you're asking questions, but this is not a time for the applicant to be advocating for the
Yeah, that's the
application.
other thing,
This is for them to
limit to
factually
the
respond to
question.
your
I will
question.
limit my responses.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those are the only 2 questions. Yeah, thank you. But the floor is open for others to ask. So those were only, I wanted to make sure that that was clear from the application. So those were part of the request. No other questions from other commissioners? Okay.
I have one. I know Mr. Park said there were no variances, but on the original application, he was at 73% impervious. With the reduction of the 118 that were, units that were removed, I mean, the footprint's still the footprint, so what is your impervious here?
Our impervious, we're in a regional activity center. The normal impervious in a regional activity center is 80%. We are at 70%, which is under this purpose-built student housing codes, and we are not asking for a variance, and the site plan does meet the 70%.
Thank you.
All right, and it's my understanding that that 70% is accomplished with the impervious pavers.
I don't know how they plan to do it. I just want to make sure it's not over 70, even though in their zoning category that they're asking for, it's 80, but with the student housing, purpose-built student housing code that we adopted in 2019, we limited that to 70% max, and of course, the height to 55 feet.
Other questions?
Commissioner Gabriel.
I do have questions, but I would just like it put on the record that 2 of the things that Mr. Huff did not present in his presentation that you asked him questions about, he essentially took 3 minutes to address, and I would not be opposed to allowing opposition 3 minutes to go over as well. Because I think, again, that was something that you had clearly stated you wanted to be presented, and he did not, and essentially took 3 additional minutes to present back to the board through the form of a question. With that, my question goes down to, and I guess Mr. Parks or Mr. Huff, you can approach. And I don't know if CP, you can pull up the chart that he showed from DOT with the 174 trips that were going to be generated a day?
One more, I think.
One more.
Is that the one?
There you go, yeah. So my question to you is, if you're only generating 174 trips a day, why are you proposing 539 parking spots?
Because the students often have cars and they would like to be able to park here. Campus parking is extremely limited.
Oh, but this is not on campus.
Right.
And on top of that, under the purpose-built student housing SLUP requirements, you are only supposed to have a total of 241 parking spots. So again, that is 65 more than you are saying is going to generate for a car trip a day. So why aren't you proposing, if you are truly coming in for a purpose-built student housing, and you were going to, sir, you were not sworn in.
I'm just going to talk to him, he can speak.
He's my expert client who knows more of the details than I am. If you want a good response, he needs to whisper in my ear so I can.
Hold on one moment. Let's just get some clarification first. For our county attorney, can you just clarify the process for the applicant?
The board asks the questions, and the applicant is able to present whoever it is but most willing to be able to answer the question. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But last time, Bill, you required him to be sworn in.
If he's presenting, yes, he would. So.
Yeah, my client pointed out that their experience, and they operate student housing projects throughout the country, that what typically happens is there's not a lot of in and out. The cars stay for long periods of time. But if you have a car, you want to be able to park your car close to where you live.
But I guess, again, my point is that if you're truly offering purpose-built student housing and we're going to follow the guidelines of the code, why are you proposing almost twice the amount of parking that is required by code? Because according to code for the SLUP, you should only have 241 parking spaces to accommodate this number of students, given the fact that you are proposing a bus that will help them get to campus. So is your client willing to reduce the number of parking to 241 spaces to be in compliance with code?
No, we have reduced the amount of parking to 538. He told me that just before I came up here and told me to remember it, and I forgot. We've reduced it to 538, which is what the project needs in their experience, and there's zero reason to underpark it because parking is a premium and very expensive to build.
But again, I'm still struggling with the fact that if that is true, there's no way that you can guarantee only 174 car trips will be done daily if you are having on-site parking for 539 vehicles. That is where I'm struggling with the fact that you are claiming you're really doing a purpose-built student housing. Now, granted, you're going to be restricting it to students, but again, you're offering parking when you don't have to, right? Because, again, code, the SLUP requires only 241. You're doing more than twice than that, yet you're offering bus service. So you're sitting here saying this isn't going to be impactful to the area?
Yes. Your point is taken, Commissioner. I think there's a lot inferred with it. I think there's a lot inferred. As a student, I can just say, knowing what somebody's daily trips are and having a vehicle parked and then going to KSU, there's a lot being inferred to say that those trips generated would be daily to go to school. I will also say that when we have minimum parking standards, it's not a variance to have more parking than what is required. Typically, there's an issue when somebody has less parking available than what is required. But there has never been an issue on this board for somebody having more parking spaces than what is required. And that's not a violation of code. That's not necessarily a wrongdoing. I think it's okay to ask the question, but to infer something negative about it, I think you can ask your question without inferring some of the things that you're saying, which would require some assumptions to be made that are not being stated.
Well, then I guess I would like this held for another 30 days for DOT to be able to go back and do their impact to the roads based on 539 parking spaces. Because again, we can't restrict them to 174, but that's what this report is generated on.
Okay.
So how will 539 trips possibly daily affect the road and impact the neighbors, et cetera? My only other question for Mr. Huff was, in his opening statement, he used quotes that, you know,
Sorry,
KSU.
Mr. Huff, excuse me, sorry. Mr. Huff, you can just come up when we call you. You don't have to keep coming back and forth.
No, I think he needs to.
Is that question for him?
It
And
is
just stay
for
up here
him.
instead of going back and forth. This is, yes.
I need my steps.
There's a lot of questions being asked. There's one with respect to DOT. I would have expected DOT to come up and respond to that. So right now, this is, to me, getting a little bit out of hand. But Mr. Huff, if the commissioner does have a question for you, and if you're still asking questions of him, just stay until the commissioner is done asking her questions, so there's not so much back and forth.
In Mr. Huff's opening statement, he stated that he was on a KSU page in Kennesaw, and there was a big discussion for on-campus housing. Those were your direct quotes in your opening statements that you started your presentation to the board. However, this project we know is not on campus. So does Landmark have an agreement with KSU to build housing? Because many of your comments in your open statement were leading the fact that KSU needs housing and you were providing it, but this is not on-campus housing. But your opening statements from that blog that we don't have a record of, right? You did not present copies of so we could see it for ourselves, so it's hearsay, was all about on-campus housing. This is off-campus housing. So my question is does Landmark have an agreement with KSU to provide housing?
I'm passing it down to the clerk. I didn't want it shown because it's got the names of the people who were commenting, and I don't want that broadcast, but that was it. My comment was, this was a discussion about where your freshmen are going to live the following year when you're living a freshman-only dorm. And the dialogue was, on-campus housing is extremely limited. You can't choose your roommates. Good luck. And the three following comments, and there were a whole lot more dialogue, but I thought it was important for this board to hear. The three following comments were, if you want to live with your friends, you're not going to be able to do it on campus. Off-campus housing is really the only option for sophomores and upperclassmen because a lot of the dorm space on campus is limited to freshmen. That was my purpose of the comment.
And I'm just going to add in response, it was shared during the last meeting when the Town Center CID was here, and also in my discussion with leadership of KSU, they do not get involved with with off-campus housing. They do not, they are part of the Board of Regents. Go ahead, Commissioner.
This is not for you, Mr. Huff.
So I can sit down?
Well, but does anybody else have a question for Mr. Huff?
Thank you.
Thank you.
John, I have a question for you, because it was brought up that this parcel is not within the Town Center CID. So if it's not within the Town Center CID, how can it be a RAC?
The Town Center CID is really a separate government from what we do here, and they're a taxation board that does improvements within the district. The future land use map is a product of the Board of Commissioners, and they're separate governments. So it doesn't matter if it's in the CID or not, because I'm sure there's properties in the CID that are not in Iraq. But they're two separate maps, and they're two separate issues. So the only thing we're concerned about is the future land use map designation of Regional Activity Center.
So I know this is an unfair question, but how many other parcels do we have around Town Center CID that are not within the rack, but have a future land use of a rack.
And I have no answer for that question, Commissioner Gamble.
Okay. Commissioner Brawl, yes. I'm sorry, before you go, there were some questions Commissioner Gamble asked that were directed to DOT, and as part of the challenge, and we have multiple questions, let's get that answered in case they come up again and close out some of her inquiries.
Good morning, Ligia Florem, DOT.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. There were some questions asked if DOT's analysis took into consideration the number of parking spaces that are on the subject property.
So we don't analyze the parking spaces, right? They're internal to the development. However, we did, the consultant did perform a traffic study originally with the higher density of 778 beds, and they analyzed the entire trip generation and what the effect on each of the studied intersections will be. And that overall study said, but it's just particular to the development, the impact of the development upon the traffic around the development. And all of that study yield that all of the intersections will be performed at an acceptable level. Yes, there will be delays because originally there were, with 778 beds, there were nearly 2,000 vehicles per day, which at the peak generator was, on the PM it will be 163 vehicles, and in the AM will be 54 vehicles. So that's the peak hour of each day. But in a day it will be 2,000. So that's what was analyzed. So we don't analyze the parking spaces, but you see that there's 2,000 vehicles expected. Now that they have lowered it to 643, that number comes down to 1,653 vehicles per day that are expected to come in and out of this building. And in a peak hour, the peak PM hour will generate 135 vehicles coming in and out, and in an AM, it's 45 vehicles in and out.
Thank you.
So that is, I think it has been covered, as far as the parking, how many people are parking, they're already covered in the 1,600 vehicles.
Thank you. Do you ever analyze parking spaces to determine what traffic will be generated?
No, that would be a separate type of study just to generate if it's sufficient parking, and it's inside of a development usually, and we concern ourselves with the right-of-way.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Lehia? Thank you. Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. Up until September 10th, all of the CID, Town Center CID, and all of KSU was District 3. So I'm very familiar with the student housing, the commercial, residential, everything in this area. My objection is mainly the location and the impact to the residential townhomes across the street. You've heard from the opposition. We've heard from them through this whole process and have had several meetings. But I don't think this is the right location for student housing, this intensity, and the traffic, even with the reduction of units.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other? I'm going to turn it back over to you, Commissioner. I almost forgot this was.
Well, I just want to make sure that all the questions have been asked before.
Well, it's not a question, but I would like for John to just kind of briefly talk about and discuss the zoning category for this particular parcel. We've heard testimony earlier that indicated or stated that this is not an appropriate location for this development, with a list of reasons why. And it seems that traffic, among other things, were at the top of that list. Can you just talk to us a little bit about this zoning category and why this is being considered for this location? Because I believe staff also recommended approval on
Correct.
this one. So if you can just share with us from the staff's perspective,
Okay.
a little bit about this parcel.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, the current zoning is OMR, which is office mid-rise, and that allows office buildings between 4 and 8 stories in height. They are required to be in a regional activity center, which is what this is. The applicant is asking for RRC, which is regional retail commercial. And that's a category that allows very dense and intense developments that include student housing, mixed-use developments, high-rise buildings, high-density apartments, and high-density commercial-type uses. And we see a lot of that in the RACs, specifically in the town center area. There's one right next door. And then we see a lot of RRCs down in the Cumberland Galleria Regional Activity Center. As far as the property's location, in the student housing code, there are 2 requirements for a location for student housing. Number 1, it's got to be in a regional activity center, which this is. And number 2, it's got to be located on a major collector road, which this is. So the location, it meets both those criteria. It's in a regional activity center, although it's on the edge, but it's on the edge of an interstate highway. And this property is approximately 500 to 600 feet away from the closest house across 575. Staff did support this because it did meet the future land use category. Staff does understand the area is intense and dense with the current uses. There are other mixed uses in the area. And we did look at other student housing developments within the area, and they're all within a mile of the campus, and they're all in the regional activity center. And there's other housing projects that are not student housing that are in Iraq also. And I think Mr. Huff talked to some of those that are close by within the RAC in Cobb County. But staff did support it, Commissioner Sheffield. We did feel it was appropriate, seeing how, the property is in Iraq. It's a part of the RAC that's in between 2 interstate highways. It's on Chastain Road, which is an arterial roadway, and it's not your average arterial roadway. It's got 6 lanes on it, 3 in each direction, and it connects 2 interstate highways. So the staff did support it based on the way the student housing code currently reads. And we just felt that the location was appropriate for what the applicant has requested.
Thank you. Also, a follow-up question regarding the townhomes, I think at Town Park Lane. In researching this case several months ago, I thought I came across the townhomes were part of a mixed-use development.
That's correct. The townhomes were zoned approximately 20 years ago with the adjoining commercial that fronts Chastain Road, and also the six-story hotel that has a steakhouse in it that's directly next door. So that was all one mixed-use development when it came in originally.
Okay, and the uses, I'm sorry, you mentioned that there's a restaurant there and,
There's a 6-story hotel with a restaurant in the lobby. And then along the frontage of Chastain Road, there's all kinds of commercial. That includes a Taco Mac, a Chick-fil-A, a Five Guys, and numerous other restaurants and commercial uses.
okay, and that was all a part of the same development?
Correct.
And what is the height of the hotel that was a part of this mixed-use development?
It's 6 stories. I'm not sure what the feet is on that.
Okay. All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Commissioner Brown.
Yeah, just clarification, whether it's relevant or not. It's my understanding with the legislative map, the north side where Resurgence and Chastain Lakes is still District 3. However, the south side, Chastain Meadows, is District 2. So I think Town Park is still in the CID because it's before you cross over 575. But the point is, commercial office space and commercial multi-use whatever is taxed by the CID. Residential is not. And I think that's where the confusion was, because I think this Z25 is in the CID boundaries, but they can't be members or can't be taxed because of residential apartments or student housing or single family.
And I understand that, Commissioner Burrow, but the fact this is in the CID has no bearing on the land use and what the Board of Commissioners does with the property.
Right, but I just want to make sure that it's cleared up that it is in the CID boundaries, whether it's taxed or not, which it can't be. The office could be. But I know that has nothing to do, but the applicant stated that it was not in the CID.
Perhaps I can provide just a little clarity on that. From what I understand, it is in the CID. It's not
The
on the tax
boundaries.
rolls.
Right.
For some reason, this particular parcel never made it to the tax rolls for the CID. That is a separate administrative issue that we can't necessarily solve for here. But additionally, also what can't be solved for here is the fact that residential, unlike other CIDs, right? In other CIDs, there can be, well,
Cumberland CID can't tax
for
residential.
multifamily, there is some opportunity, yes. Cumberland area, it is true. They
For
are unique.
multifamily? Okay.
I'm just trying to
I know.
provide some insight from the CID, what leadership has shared with me on that. There is some opportunity that we can help make sure that they are covered in that space too. That is something that they've wanted to lobby for, but again, that is something we can't solve for in this zoning. But it is a strange situation for this parcel. That is an accurate assessment.
Commissioner Gambrill.
I have a follow-up question for Mr. Peterson. Going back to the 6-story hotel that Commissioner Sheffield asked about in the mixed-use development that was approved, there's a significant grade difference. So that 6-story hotel will be actually less tall than the proposed purpose-built student housing. So topography played a great role in that being approved, just so you know that. John, as far as the analysis, because you were saying staff analyze this, and I think we all need to understand that in the purpose-built student housing, there is nothing really in the code to allow staff to deny. There's really nothing in the code to allow it to be denied. So my question to you is, yes, you compared this to other purpose-built student housings, but then we had testimony that other purpose-built student housings were done at 25 or 26 units per acre. So in your analysis, why didn't you compare this to other purpose-built student housing as far as units per acre or beds? And because then we also had great testimony about the adjacent property owner and the restrictions that were put on them and treating all applicants equally. So I'm struggling. I'll let you answer first.
Thank you. And the reason why we did not compare it, Commissioner Gambrill, is, just the distance there away from this property. Because if you look at other multifamily residential properties, there are properties close, including the one directly next door, which is at 65 units per acre. So if we were to, and the retreat, I think it's around 39 units per acre, and the Z43 that's currently being held by the board, it's around 25, I think, per acre. But we just didn't take those into consideration because those are in different areas, and they're not directly contiguous to this property. What was the second part of your question?
So you kind of answered my question, but where I'm struggling is we're now trying to match the beds to the, essentially what was approved on the adjacent property.
Okay.
But the adjacent property is a different use than the purpose-built student housing. And so that was kind of what part of my question was, is, again, the code doesn't really give us anything to deny these with, but when staff did their analysis, we're now looking to the adjacent property to compare this with, but we're not comparing apples to apples. It's almost apples to oranges, because this board, minus myself, approved that with restrictions, yet now we're trying to say that's the same thing here, but granting different benefits.
Yeah, and the property next door at 108 Town Park, it is zoned in the same category, RRC, but those were brought in as market rate apartments, and the board put a condition on it that they could not be a person that signs your lease with you as a co-signer. And the board did that to, I guess, prevent student housing on that development. But the matter of fact is those were zoned and brought in as market rate apartments, and that's what they are. They're not student housing apartments.
Right, and I guess, again, this is part of what we're working on with the moratorium is, making sure that we are comparing all things equally. And to me, this isn't equal with what's being proposed, comparing it to the adjacent property.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just want to provide one clarification. Staff does have opportunity to deny. Their hands are not held to approve all purpose-built student housing, and it was shared early in the conversation. They do look at the comprehensive plan, and I know that that is one factor that staff does consider when determining if they would approve an application or not. When something does not comport with the comprehensive plan, does staff approve those applications?
When talking about other zoning cases, it's most of the time we do not, but there are certain cases where the comp plan is clearly not consistent with the nature of the area. So staff may recommend something different than what the comp plan recommends.
Did staff have latitude to not approve this application?
Staff could have done a denial on it,
Okay.
Madam Chair, but the reasons for denying it, just aren't there. We need to make a good argument to deny something if we wanted to deny it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner?
I just had two things regarding the topo challenges in the hotels, John. Because there were topo challenges, doesn't necessarily mean that the hotel would not have been built. That use would have been approved as far as the topo challenges. That would have just brought in the question of the height of the building, et cetera, but it doesn't mean that a hotel would not have been approved had it not been for topography challenges.
The hotel was approved in topography, as I remember, it was not an issue when this came in for zoning 20 years ago.
Okay.
And John Paul could put the topo layer up, but, there may be some, but there's not enough to put it in a hole per se for the hotel.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing regarding fairness of the adjacent parcel, and we've heard this quite a bit, I've met with the owner of the adjacent parcel, and I think part of the concern, and Commissioner, you were Commissioner at the time, so please correct me, and John, you as well. At the time, there might have been a desire for there to be student housing at this location, but at the recommendation of the community, and I believe the then Commissioner, there were community meetings, and what the applicant agreed to was a result of meeting with the community and not offering student housing. So, that's something that he agreed to at the recommendation of the community and the then Commissioner. If my understanding is incorrect, then just please let me know. But it's not that he was denied and now we're considering this application, introducing this idea of unfairness. What he ended with, or what that development, the approval for that development was an agreement in part by that applicant and the community. But if I'm misunderstanding that, just either 2 or 3 or John, you guys can correct me.
For the apartments, that was in the agreement and steps with the applicant and the residents.
Did he originally want to have student housing, that apartment? Do you recall?
I'm not sure what the original application, was it for?
It was for market rate apartments.
Yeah,
Oh, it was always for
apartments.
market rate?
Yeah.
Okay, it was always for market rate, okay. Then I'm a little unclear about the unfairness piece then.
Well, because they agreed to
Oh, not
put
have-
language in there that you couldn't co-sign.
Gotcha.
So that
Okay,
they can't say no student housing because of the Fair Housing Act,
Right.
which is a federal law. So
and since
they had
parents
the
sign.
language in there that,
Okay.
like parents couldn't
Could sign.
co-sign for
Gotcha,
students.
okay, all right, thanks.
And if I can weigh in, I think what this also says is that the community was willing to do the market rate apartments, knowing that it wasn't going to be student housing. or it wasn't going to be marketed specifically towards student housing. And I think we also need to, we just had a big discussion last Tuesday on housing. And yes, there's a need for housing in Cobb County, yet here we are doing specific housing for only, or marketed towards one type of end user, not addressing housing in a whole. And I think that is where the community is upset, is because, again, they don't think, and again, we can use the adjacent property as precedence here, is they were fine, right, stepping outside of the future, what they had planned to be there, knowing that it wasn't going to be marketed towards students. And again, the gentleman who presented the information is exactly right. Would we move in next to student housing? They had a contract, right, when they bought their houses. They knew what was going to be in the area. They knew what it was going to be, and now we are going to essentially go in through a zoning act and change what they had anticipated to be in the area. So to me, that's the bigger argument here is, again, it's not the fact that it wants to become a place to house people, but it's the specific type of housing they are marketing to.
But when we talk about the shortage of housing, students are also included in that. It's just not isolated to single-family residential property. So I wouldn't necessarily separate this from meeting our housing challenges and meeting the needs of those that need housing. It just happens that this happens to be students, right? So, our housing challenge, again, is not just isolated to, single family, families, but also to students. And, regarding what the community anticipated with any future development, this is a parcel that is before us for consideration for redevelopment, much like the parcels that they now reside at one point was also before the board for consideration. And, this is kind of the challenge that we'll sometimes meet when we have zoning applications where there is opposition. But, the development at the townhome community did not always exist there, but there was a residential property, I'm sure not far from there, that may have also had the same concerns with the development of a townhouse community. It could be a single-family residential that had an issue with that. So, everyone's concerns are legitimate, and I'm sensitive to the concerns, but we have to look at, or I have to look at all angles, and we all do, to figure out what's the best path forward. The applicant has made an effort or reduced the number of beds in good faith. That will, in fact, reduce the traffic, and I understand the concern regarding the parking spaces, but it was also brought up that just because you have the parking space and the car there doesn't necessarily you're going to drive it to school every day. That's why you have the shuttle. And if I had my preference, I'd jump on the shuttle before driving over to campus and then having to park. So there's just certainly a lot to consider with this application.
All right, there certainly is a lot to consider with this application. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into my thoughts. I'll keep them relatively brief, and then I'll go into a motion in terms of what I'm prepared to move to do. So in the spirit of Thanksgiving coming up, I do want to say thank you all so much for participating in this journey. This case, from what I understand, 9 months has been going on, and a lot of transition has occurred, a lot of great work. I think a tremendous effort on the applicant's standpoint with getting some reduction in and listening to having those community meetings, the community for showing up every single time, articulating what the concerns are and pushing back. So usually I don't give the platitudes, but it is Thanksgiving, so I thought it would be nice. I think that there's a lot really going on with this particular property. There's a backdrop of master planning efforts going on, conversations that need to take place with KSU, with Town Center, CID, and with the county to make sure that there's more consistency and predictability for both the applicant and for the community when it comes to these types of parcels. Specifically with student-based housing, it's a complex issue. Yes, we do have a code, we have the SLUP available for it, but we know that we've stood up now a moratorium and the community discussions to try to figure out what's the right pathway to move forward. So given the fact that all these conversations are taking place, it's made it difficult to really analyze this application in a pure standard. It's hard to look at where do you pull the apples from, in other words, so that you can do closer to apples. And you know, a lot of, because with regards to the application itself, it certainly does meet a lot of, as you've heard through this discussion, there was a reason why staff recommended approval of this application. However, there are still some open questions that have been reoccurring in these conversations around density, around traffic, and then the broader policy question about what is a suitable use, what are those suitable uses, and where should those be located. One of the things that I am trying to do is make sure that we are not holding hostage those certain considerations at appropriate times. So as far as the policy conversation of appropriate use, that's something that the county is trying to tackle concurrently. But like I said, it does present difficulty in trying to analyze this particular zoning. So to get as close as possible to apples and apples, part of the request on density side was in looking at similar products or similar parcels. The request was to get to 60 from a density perspective. And that was honestly in the hopes of getting to 65. The applicant got to 70. I am rounding up. I'm aware that that is not an exactitude. That is, it's 69.8. But the applicant got to 70. There are also some open questions around traffic, specifically because of this lane that runs in front of the town park homes, that there are just some open questions related to that. And then certainly there were, while the property value assessment was done by a certified expert, and that is definitely, you know, I appreciate the evidence being provided for that, there are some concerns about the fact that we aren't really looking at what other communities experience with regards to student housing. And so there are some components to the SLUP application that I think don't necessarily meet the threshold. So those are my general comments in trying, like I said, to treat this application as an apples to apples, knowing that the background conversation is happening. Certainly, I do hope that provides some transparency for what I'm thinking and where I'm sitting on this, and where I think that there is future opportunity. But, you know, some things just to note, this is a RAC, and this is a future land use plan, a RAC, for the residents that live there. There's a hotel there. There's mixed use in the area. There's high density that is there. And that is just a part of knowing what is potentially going to come to your area given the future land use map. That is the tool that we have from an enforceability standpoint as a Board of Commissioners. And so, you know, what I'm articulating here, though, is that given the assessment, I do think that we're falling short on 2 of those requirements, potentially 3, but 2 of those requirements. And so with that, my preferred position is to deny this application on those 2 points. So if there are no questions, I will move into a motion.
Second.
Well, I didn't motion it yet, but. This is for the zoning app, Z25, and then I'll repeat the same, not the whole soliloquy, but I'll repeat the motion for SLUP 6, but the motion is to deny Z25. And
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I know that I will share that the conversation around this has been very heavy and many times very disappointing. We have one of the state's largest universities in our backyard, and there are many other communities across our state that would love to be in the position that we are in as a county. The conversations that we've had with respect to student housing have not been balanced. And even in our student housing moratoriums and efforts, the one party that I don't see involved in those are students. Not one student, and I'm unfamiliar if there are parents that have been engaged in those conversations. But the conversations that I've been having with a number of parents is very similar to the communication that was shared by Parks. I think we have never reconciled the opportunity we have with this large institution and the fact that this large institution happened upon residents who did not move into the community expecting for KSU to grow the way that it has and to encroach upon the community that they've expected. So we've done our very best to safeguard those residents, but we have not reconciled the fact that not only do we have one of the largest universities in the state, but we are very fortunate to have one of the largest universities in the state that adds vibrancy to our county and that adds workforce to many of our institutions, including Cobb County government. Whatever happens moving forward, I would hope that we have a more balanced discussion about this. Also, something else that is really bothering me that I would like to share is that just because an applicant stipulates a condition on their property does not hold hostage any other property. Your negotiation to get what you want allows you to get what you want, but should not limit or imply that it impacts what somebody else would want for their own property. Now, I understand it because I used to be a district commissioner. I know the work that is done to move applications along, and we appreciate any effort by any applicant to work with the community because too often that does not occur. And the community is left with a product that they have to live with. But every application is negotiated or has the opportunity to be negotiated. There is some influence that every zoning has in another case, but there is no case that should have the ability to reach beyond its border to require something else to be done outside of that subject property. That's inappropriate. There'd be no reason for us to be here. Everything would be done administratively, in fact. There is discretion that's provided. The conversations that I've heard from some members of the community have been downright offensive, disappointing. As much as there is no legal class to protect students, that doesn't mean that we should have less consideration of what they provide for our community. Because many of us who are here, Cobb is one of the most educated counties. About 49.5% of our residents have a bachelor's degree or higher have been there. And I shudder to think, after a student has worked very hard to get into college, and then they cross over to even be accepted, then has the limitation of not being able to live at a university and go to that university because they can't live there. I think these are conversations we should be able to have as a county without being offensive about it. we can do better than this. I'm going to support your position. I don't agree with it. But I know what it's like to be a district commissioner and to have to deal with the multiple things that are considered in an application. I'm going to ask, or at least put on the record, that we should not be having student housing task forces with no students or no parents. It's imbalanced. We have got to reconcile the fact that this asset is here and it is serving our county and it serves students. And for the offensive comment about not knowing about it being an employment or economic center, many people work at a university. That's why it's considered such. And many people go to work from a university, if that was not clear when you read that. KSU has a significant economic impact on this county and this state. So I will support you. I'm very disappointed. I'm hoping that we will have a balanced discussion to ensure that we are protecting our citizens that live near the school and that we are protecting the students that add to our county and our state and even beyond by way of seeking whatever education they pursue when they go to KSU. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Gambrell.
I would just like to put on the record that I am on the Purpose-Built Student Housing Steering Committee that is just formed. This is my first time serving on it, as I was not a commissioner when it was first put on. But I'd also like to put on the record that in our first meeting, Mr. Parks Huff was in attendance and Landmark was also invited. So there was representation.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Again, I'm stating students should be on that committee. I didn't say anything about student housing applicants being on the committee. I said students and parents of students. Are there any other comments or questions? Call the question. The motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Sheffield in opposition.
Okay. And then for SLUP 6, motion to deny as well.
Second.
All right, call the question. The motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Sheffield in opposition. Okay, we'll take a brief 5-minute break, please. Thank you, and welcome back to our zoning hearing this November 19th, 2024. It's amazing what a break can do. So there's a couple of administrative matters to address. The one is, just in thinking about it, I need to change my vote on that last one. I know I said I'd support you, Commissioner, but just even thinking through it, I can't support it. So I need to change my vote. John, I don't know the procedure for that, and I see our county attorney isn't here, but I just want to make sure that I have the proper motion for that vote to be
I believe it'd be
reconsidered.
a motion to rescind first
Okay.
and then re-vote on it.
All right, so Commissioners, I move to rescind my vote.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 5-0. And then, do I just call the question to reconsider the whole vote?
Is that for both cases or just the
For
zoning?
both, the SLUP and,
Okay, so Robin, do we need to do separate motions for both? Okay, separate motions for both.
okay, thank you. And then do I move to reconsider the vote, or do I move just to change my vote?
We'll make another motion to rescind your vote on the SLUP.
Okay, I move to rescind my vote on the SLUP.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 5-0.
Okay, so now we will just call for a new vote on Z25 first.
All right, so a revote or reconsideration of the vote?
Just a reconsideration.
Okay, so Commissioners, I move for reconsideration. Can I do the motion for the regular zoning case and the SLUP at the same time?
I just do them separately.
Okay, thank you.
Here comes.
Okay. Okay, so Commissioners, I move for us to vote once again for Z25. Is there a second?
I'll remake the motion.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Your motion to deny Z25?
All right. The second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the question. Okay, the motion carries 3-2.
Motion to deny SLUP 6.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Okay, call the question. The motion carries 3-2. Thank you. We also have another administrative matter to add something back on consent.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
It's my understanding that the applicant in opposition for other business number 68 have talked, and the opposition is no longer opposed to the case, so I'm going to recall it. Other business item number 68 of 2024 is to consider amending site plan for Carlos Iglesias regarding rezoning application Z118 of 1996. The property is located at the east side of Floyd Road, north of White Boulevard, and land lots 31 and 42 of the 17th district. Staff recommends approval, subject to number 1, site plan received September 18th, 2024, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Number 2, fire department comments. Number 3, Cobb DOT comments. Number 4, stormwater management comments. And number 5, district commissioner to approve the final building elevations. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 68?
Okay, I don't see any.
And no one is opposed, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Sheffield.
I'm going to add,
That's yours.
I hear a buzz. Okay, it's not just me. Okay, I'll read some stuff into the record, but the application is for a Chase Bank, and the opposition was for 2 members of the community that desired a coffee shop instead. So that's what the issue was there. But I know I'll revise or include that the rear elevation to include windows or other architectural details consistent with recently built Chase Banks, and that the final landscape plan is to be approved by the county arborist and the district commissioner. Thanks, Chair, it went away. Prohibited uses to include, and Robin, I'll get this to you because it's a laundry list of items, but prohibited uses to include liquor store, adult entertainment, sales of sexually explicit or drug-related paraphernalia, smoke, vape, and CDB oil shops, pawn shops and title pawn shops, gold or precious metal dealers, nightclubs, check cashing locations or establishments, discount sales, furniture and/or appliance rentals and/or rent-to-own, auto sales, auto parts, auto service, and used tire establishments. as well as auto-related establishments, taxi dispatching services, wholesale-only establishments, firewood sales, thrift stores, secondhand stores, or flea markets, and restaurants with drive-through access. Approval is for this use and this use only. Any other use to be returned to the Board of Commissioners as an other business item. And all other staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. And that concludes. Yes, ma'am.
Is the applicant amenable to those conditions that were read in? And the applicant is nodding. Thank you. All right, we'll call the question. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Commissioner. Then John.
Okay, moving into the other business agenda. First case we're going to hear today is other business item number 63 of 2024, which is to consider a site plan and stipulation amendment for Mount Bethel Christian Academy Incorporated regarding SLEP 11 of 2013. The property is located on the north side of Post Oak Road, west of Holly Springs Road, in land lots 599, 600, 625, and 626 of the 16th District. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 63? Please stand and raise your hands. 3. Okay, let the record show there's 3 people here in opposition to other business item number 63. Is there anyone here in support of other business item number 63? Please stand and raise your hands.
Support.
Let the record show there's 40 people here in support of other business item number 63. All those who wish to address the board for or against the application, please come forward to be sworn in.
You may begin.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I'm Kevin Moore here on behalf and pleased to represent, really, Mount Bethel Christian Academy in this other business application for what is a application to have their master plan for their over 30-acre campus located on Post Oak Tritt near its intersection with Holly Springs Road approved. This location was first approved by the board in 2013 for Mount Bethel Christian Academy. And since that time, there have been a couple of other instances where the board has had approvals as they've worked through how to master plan this campus for their school and school purposes. And you see it on your screen now and highlighted so you can familiarize yourself with where the location is there on Post Oak Tritt, just west of its intersection with Holly Springs. As we've told you in the past, we would at some point come forward with a master plan that would identify where everything would be in terms of the future development of the school as it builds out. And that's what we're here before you today to consider. We have had meetings with the East Cobb Civic Association. We've had meetings with also adjacent neighbors through the years, and also more recently in discussions. We were unable to reach a final agreement, but we did have those discussions, and we're all better off for it. I'm going to turn now to the site plan just so I can show you what is going on with the master plan and in a little more detail and some of the thought processes behind that. All right, just to orient you again, we have Post Oak Tritt along the bottom here, and on the right-hand side of this plan is Holly Springs Road. The first item that is a major change in the master plan is an additional access point located here closer to the intersection. That is an additional change that we would be proposing. For your information, we have conducted a full traffic study, and that traffic study has been fully reviewed and accepted by DOT, has necessitated for us to have this additional location and drive there. That will help in two regards. Number one, it helps with traffic movement and access actually out out on Post Oak Tritt Road. Number two, it also obviously helps with the school's functionality in terms of its operations and circulation internally as well. The other changes I'll highlight for you, I think one of the larger changes is you see these groupings of buildings. For currently, there is a portion of this building which is existing. It's now also served by modular classrooms. These buildings, however, are not in existence. So this would propose the addition of new academic and school buildings, expansions of cafeteria dining, as you might expect, for the school, as well as additional academic buildings. Those are all 2- and 3-story buildings, depending on like a 2-3 split, or mostly 2-story buildings that would be built out in this location here. I want to draw your attention also to the field, the football field. If you some of you may recall when that was ultimately approved previously, it's now been constructed and is in this location. The other aspect, just to show you so as we go around, this is the baseball field. That baseball field is actually currently in that location. It's a lighted baseball field in this location. What we'd be doing is simply reorienting that just slightly as part of this proposal. Currently, the tennis courts and swimming pool are located here, which is the highest point of the property. Those are proposed to be relocated to a central portion of the property. Tennis courts go in here, and that this location here is where the pool would be. It'd be a covered pool facility there. Also, it's of particular note that this pool location sits about 25 feet below the elevation of this field and would be positioned up against about a 25-foot retaining wall. And so it sits far below in this centralized location than the surrounding residences. Also, it's important to note that the pool and tennis court are being moved to a central location and away from an existing property line. We do have neighbors. There are 2 homes located here on the Meadows property, which is at the intersection. So we're moving those items to a more central location, central to all neighbors as part of this application. And that last item, which is the location of the pool and tennis court, during our discussions, that's really become the issue, which prevented us from having, I think, a full agreement with our neighbors and with the East Cobb Civic Association. Their desire was to have the pool and tennis courts remain in its current location, immediately adjacent to our eastern neighbor along the right-hand side, where we are showing parking as part of our very well-intentioned and very intentional master planning for this site. We've moved those to a central location where they're centrally located both to the ball field, football field, baseball field, and located more in a hole than where they are now on top of a hill. That was so we would provide that activity where it's not immediately adjacent to any particular neighbor, and we felt that was very important from our side. In fact, our site plan designers from Croft have submitted a letter to us on November 18th. I just want to submit that for the record, simply because they detail in this letter just what I just reported to you, that it was intentional to put those 2 facilities, the tennis court and the swimming pool, in that central location as opposed to adjacent to any particular owner. And also that they believe that the noise, so forth, that might be generated from those activities would be less impactful to any neighbor in that location, and that was part of why they chose that location. I also want to remind you, if you look at the top end of this site plan along the football field, there is an 85-foot undisturbed buffer, if you recall, potentially. That was imposed many years ago as part of the original approval. That remains an 85-foot undisturbed buffer against those particular neighbors as well. And as we get to this issue of the location of the pool and the tennis court, I'm forced to just kind of think about also that this is a faith-based private school, which is why we have to be here. And as a result, though, they are someone that benefits from the Religious Land Use and Freedom Act. That's a federal statute that says that religious institutions cannot be substantially discriminated against as opposed to or compared to secular institutions like a public school in similar locations. And in looking at this particular issue, I just did a review of Cobb County's high schools, which are far bigger than what Mount Bethel Christian Academy is. And I looked at this list here: South Cobb, McEachern, Kell, Walton, Laster, Pope, Harrison, and Osborne. I took that from across the county. That's a cross-section of locations in the county. Each one of those public high schools who didn't have to come through any board approval have locations surrounded by neighborhoods, surrounded by residences where their football fields or their tennis courts or their baseball field or their activities are located adjacent to neighborhoods. The point of me saying that is not because of the religious land use act. My point of me saying that is go look at those neighborhoods and what they have done and what they've become. They've all thrived, and they continue to thrive because they have a school in their neighborhood. Now, I understand and I completely empathize with the fact that if you do have a school in your neighborhood, that you're going to hear things or are going to be noiseless activities. It's a school. But on the flip side of that, all of these communities have grown, thrived, improved in their value as a result of the school being there as well. And we believe that exactly the same thing has happened here. The Mount Bethel Christian Academy, in communication that has come to you, it's been implied, if not outright said, that they've been a bad neighbor. I think even the word potentially bully was used. And we just want to correct that a little bit and just simply say, I don't think that's true. And we don't think that's true whatsoever. We have had an open door policy from day one with them and met at any time at their request and have not been anything but a really good neighbor to be responsive to concerns that have been expressed, and they're immediately done so. And I want to give you a couple of examples to highlight that. I pointed out the 85-foot undisturbed buffer. When we put in the football field, we were required to do some additional tree plantings. Took it to the county arborist. We ended up planting 219 additional trees along that buffer and within that buffer to provide for additional screening for these very same owners on that particular side of this property. The 219 additional trees that were planted were far in excess of actually what the arborist was even requiring. We also went ahead and irrigated some of that area so that we could make sure that those trees survived and thrived. In addition, and this is the one that really caught my eye, the neighbors expressed some concern. Those same neighbors on that one side expressed concern about the visual of seeing the football field and the lights and the activity. And so we discussed it with them and determined that it would be a good idea if they had window treatments on their homes. So what did Mount Bethel Christian Academy do? We let them pick out window treatments that they wanted. We paid for them, and we paid for the installation of that. And those are just two examples of the types of collaboration that Mount Bethel Christian Academy has undertaken, and we just haven't seen the reciprocity that perhaps we deserve. But I do think that this is an appropriate master plan and respectfully request.
Mr. Moore, your time's up.
Thank you. Time did well. Thank you.
All right, we'll now hear from opposition. And be mindful if there are others who desire to speak, as all of you will have 10 minutes in total.
Cornelius, can we put this one there? Madam Chairwoman, board members, my name is Richard Grome. I'm a member of East Cobb Civic Association and ECCA case manager for OB 63. As you can see from ECCA's submitted recommendations, there have been lots of meetings and absolutely no progress amongst the parties. The applicant believes they can do whatever they want on their property with no consequences. The applicant has again allowed their temporary classroom permit to expire without bothering to request a renewal. The last extension given for these classrooms carried the clause that this one was the last LUP to be granted for that purpose. Does Mount Bethel Christian Academy even have a timeline for permanent classrooms? The applicant has misrepresented an outdoor storage area connected to the football field area, which is actually used for a lacrosse practice wall, with balls consistently pounded against the wall, increased noise for the neighbors. We are now being asked to accept a master plan, which is nothing but labeled rectangles on a piece of paper. The applicant has not even bothered to follow their own application for submittal of stipulations and conditions. We have received none. We are now being told that moving swimming facilities closer to the neighbors will cut down on neighbors' noise. The location of the proposed swimming facility with open sides will be approximately 1/2 the distance closer to the neighbors to the west and the east, or I'm sorry, to the north and the west than the present enclosed pool. Sound, which radiates in a sphere from the source, is decreased by the square of the distance. Therefore, the sound at half the distance is 4 times greater. The hard surface of a retaining wall on one side will bounce the sound rather than absorb it. The noise will not be less. The noise will be much greater due to the decrease in distance to the neighbors and open sides of the pool. We are now being told by the applicant that moving the tennis courts will create less noise than the practice field that is now at this location. They fail to say that the subsequent relocation of the practice field will be closer to the neighbors to the west and adjacent to the proposed new tennis courts. The addition of the noise from the tennis courts to the noise from the practice field does not create less noise. In addition, there will be substantial increased lighting in this area, even downlit. It will be very noticeable from the neighbor's property. ECCA recommends that action be taken by Cobb County immediately for the expired LUP on the temporary classrooms. The applicant has failed to address this issue with this OB. ECCA recommends denial of the site plan in the proposed OB 63 for the purpose of modifying their present existing site plan. The submitted plan has no time frame attached to any of the buildings, no plans on where the children will go when the new academic buildings are under construction, no renderings of the new buildings. ECCA also recommends holding this petition until a site plan is proposed with any relocation of sporting facilities to be equal to or further from the neighbors than their present location. The outside storage area adjacent to the football field will be restricted from use as a lacrosse practice wall. A schedule for the removal of the portable classrooms and building of the academic buildings be submitted with this OB. No new sporting facilities be built until the temporary trailers are removed, and that any submittal include detailed stipulations and conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition? There is a balance of 6 minutes on the clock.
Hello. Thanks for allowing us to speak on this.
Sir, if you would please state your
I'm Gary
name.
Hughes. I'm sorry.
Just make sure you please state your name, please.
I'm sorry. I was getting there. I'm Gary Hughes. My wife and I, Lisa, have lived in our house for 41 years. Most of the neighbors on that street, on Alberta Drive, that is the north end of the football field. I live on the 20-yard line. There was mention of a lot of trees being planted in that border. There were thousands removed for that football field to be there. A lot of trees were torn down in that undisturbed border, so, you know, that's why they put more trees there, I guess. But anyway, our objection is we are, in the past few years, we've been forced to accept the football field. It's huge. I don't, if that's accurate in size to the pool's a third of the football field. If that goes in, and you see how concentrated that area is, there's a lot of opposition there on Alberta Drive, but again, almost all the residents are older. I'm one of them. And for whatever reasons, they couldn't be here today. I spoke to a lot of them. I spoke to a lot of the ones in the Northampton Park area. They're also in opposition of it, but, you know, I think everybody's just kind of looking at this as it's gone on, is we're David and Goliath. You see what they've got and what we've got showing up here today. And we're not against the church. I'm a Methodist. I'm not of Mount Bethel, but I'm not against the church at all. but the amount of noise, the amount of disruption to when there's a game going on, and just to mention, that's a football field that's also lined for lacrosse, it's also lined for soccer, and it's also set up for field hockey. So that's 4 different things, at least, that are played on that field. We were told it would be just tag football for the little kids, because they don't even field the team out of their high school yet. So we have experienced college kids on that field practicing, playing, whatever. And maybe it's not often, but it's, anyway, that's there. Now what they're asking to do is to put an Olympic-sized swimming pool right the other side of the football field, as you can see, and the tennis courts then down from that. I'm not sure the scale and the distance this is there, but that 85 feet that they speak of is about the length of this room, maybe less, with very few things blocking us. My house sits to where it goes uphill from the field, and then my deck level above that, when I look out or sit out on my deck, that we used to do quite a bit, now we're overlooking that, and it's not the site. It's a beautiful field. I just wish it was in another zip code, but it's not. So it's not the site of anything that they've done. It's the noise level. And I get it. They're kids, and the kids aren't really the noise problem. When they have the games, there's hundreds of parents that come there to cheer their kids on, and I get it. My son used to play baseball, and I know how that all works. You want to cheer your kids on, but if they could be mindful of the fact that there's 200 plus parents out there, if there's only 10 kids on the field, there could be 200 parents out there yelling and cheering on Johnny. And I get that, but the noise level created from that, and then you compound that with the swimming pool, which it's some distance away from my house, but I can still hear it with the bullhorns and the coaches and the whistles and the air horns or whatever it is that they use to sound times, I don't know. But with all that combined with what we already deal with from the football field, combine that then with the tennis courts, I don't think the tennis courts will be that much of a sound disruption for us. I don't hear them where they are now, but the pool and the
Mr.
football
Hughes,
field.
Mr. Hughes, your time's up.
I'm sorry?
Your time is up.
Okay. So anyway, can I just finish with this?
I'm sorry. Thank you. All right, so time is concluded for both opposition and the applicants. I'll turn things over to you, Commissioner.
Thank you. I would first like to say that this has been in several times for other business since it was originally approved in 2013, and it has always been in District 3. And this is high school, the upper classes. And I'm not sure how many years the lower school has been at Lower Roswell across from our precinct, but ever since I've been here, so. First, I'd like to ask Lahia to come up about the second entrance that's being proposed. I just want to make sure that the site distance is, meets the requirements, and is it right in, right out, and left in, and no left out? Or what is DOT recommending?
Sure, Legiflorum DOT. Yes, the easternmost driveway is a right-in, right-out only proposed driveway. We are concerned about this site distance as it stands right now. We have not received, at this point, site distance triangles to verify that, but they assure us that they will, and if they will take measurements to ensure that there's site distance. Otherwise, during plan review, we will not approve that driveway if they cannot prove that they can achieve site distance by whatever methods there has to be. As you know, the property next door to the east of them is very wooded, so then that impedes the site distance. And also, there's a horizontal curve and sort of a crest curve, which is a vertical curve as well. So they will have to take measures to make sure that they achieve the minimum for that road.
Okay. And anything else from the traffic study that you want to tell us?
Well, the traffic study is accepted, and they studied the intersections near the school, and including Postal Street and Holy Springs, which we already had identified as a county, as a department, that it is a problematic intersection, and we have a project currently in the works that has considered several concepts to improve that intersection. So yes, they showed that in their study that intersection in the future will fail even without the development, and the development is bringing in an additional 1,000 vehicles a day. Therefore, of course, it increases the delays or the issues that happen at that intersection. Also, their study shows that at their main entrance, during dismissal, they will have to have an officer there. Otherwise, internally, they will have a failure. They will have too much delay for people coming out of their school.
I'm sorry, they will have
At
to
the
have
main
what?
entrance, in the future, if they don't have an officer dedicated during dismissal, their driveway will fail. They will have over 300 seconds of delay coming out of the school. So it will be upon them to ensure that their tenants or that their patrons are able to get out of their driveway. But that is internal to their site.
Okay. And I think that was a step in the last other business that came through, that they would provide a officer for traffic control.
Right, and it can be stipulated in this case as well. It is noted in their traffic study.
Okay. I don't have any other questions for you unless the board does.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moore, can you come up?
Yes,
It's still morning. Good morning.
good morning.
Okay. So this has been in several times since it originated in 2013. And Mr. Peterson and I actually asked you and the school to come up with a master plan with everything that is going here mapped out, and the build-out of the temporary classrooms. I know Mr. Grome commented that the lot for the temporary classrooms had expired. And it had once before, but it got renewed, and now it's expired again. But with this application pending, until we know, I guess, I'm not asking for a renewal at this point until we know what's going to happen here, while this is pending. But we did ask for a complete and thorough master plan from your client. And so I'm guessing this is the result.
This is the result. This is the master plan.
Master plan final for everything that's going here.
Correct.
Okay. The current enrollment at the upper school is,
200.
and the capacity, the maximum capacity which has been stipulated, I guess, all along, is 625.
625, that's correct.
Okay.
From
And
the
you're at
prior
200
stipulations.
now?
And we're 200 upper school students, correct?
Okay, 9 through 12.
Yes.
Grades 9 through 12. It's just high school right now.
Right now.
Okay. I know you got a lot of, I'm sorry, I know we got a lot, well, 10 over the weekend of opposition. And I know with this application, I have not really met with the neighbors, especially Alberta. I know y'all have, but I was kind of trying to leave that up to you and the neighbors and East Cobb Civic, because they've been involved all along. So, what I would like to do is hold this till December and have a community meeting, but also walk the property with East Cobb Civic and Alberta Drive neighbors, or the ones most impacted, that are closest to this, that are impacted. You know, we've heard that there's noise from the football field and other things that are impacting the neighbors. But I checked with code enforcement yesterday, and the only complaint they have received was in 2013 for banners. So I know the school has a 24/7 number and person to call. I guess Steve, the facilities
Either Steve or
manager,
Jim.
is the on-call contact for 24/7. So I'm not sure what complaints he has received over the years, or since this was last in, but I'd like to walk the property with the master plan, and just, we also have decibel meters now at all of our precincts. So we can have an officer out there during a game to see if it meets and stand on the deck for Mr. Hughes or Lenny's property to see if it's within the range, the 70 decibel range for daytime or whatever. Now, I know there are no lights on the ball field because that was restricted from day one. So right now, it can only be used till 5:30 with it getting dark so soon. And in the summer, maybe 9 at the latest. And I think stipulations to that hours in the last stipulation letter. But I do think usually other businesses to remove a stip or, you know, a site plan like this. But I think with the master plan proposed, I think we need a new stip letter as well that maybe didn't address other things in the past. So I'd like to schedule a community meeting and a walking the property. If the school has a room where we can meet, that would be fine, or I can schedule it at Mountain View Library meeting room and then walk over, however. But I would like to hold this for more input and review, and to, you know, have a stip letter and all that completed. So,
And I'm sure we can coordinate that and with you, and we'll just look for your leadership and direction on coordinating the date for that and how you'd like to go about that. You know, we had sent out communication to the Alberta Drive adjacent residents this past month requesting to meet with them specifically, and they sent back specifically that they were not wanting to meet. So hopefully they'll attend.
okay. All right, well, my motion would be to hold other business 63 Mount Bethel until the December 17th zoning hearing.
there any discussion? I do have one question, if the applicant can approach. It's just bewildering me this entire time. If you were to look at the eastern property line going towards Holly Springs Road, there seems to be a lot of unbuilt space. Why isn't a lot of the activity activated there versus where residents are towards the west side?
There we go. Madam Chair, I think this is our eastern property line, and so that's what you're referencing. Here, what's proposed, currently tennis court, pool are here. This entrance does not exist, so this would allow for that circulation and parking next to the new academic buildings. And this area here.
I'm sorry, did you say the tennis court and the pool are already there?
Yeah, they're located here. That's right adjacent to this neighbor.
Can you go to the GIS?
And then,
Yes, yeah, can we look at the GIS map?
Sure.
Thank you. Of what is there today?
Yeah,
Okay.
there are the tennis courts and the pool.
that's the pool and tennis courts there
Can you,
now.
excuse me, can you zoom out for me a second? Thank you. Zoom out. Which one is the pool?
Little
It's
white
covered, so it's
square.
that white,
Okay.
that's what it looks
I
like.
have,
And it's
the other
enclosed.
one pulled.
Correct? It's,
Wait, go
that's
back in
not
again.
enclosed,
It's not enclosed fully, but it has a cover on it.
Okay.
yeah.
Same
And
as
that's
what's
what
being
it will
proposed.
be moving down below, to the left,
To the left.
and the tennis courts in front of that.
That's the tennis court.
So where, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. will you-
I just want to make sure I answer your question.
What I'm generally looking at, I live right next to a private school myself, and the noise is audible.
Yes.
It is. But I was just curious, I was looking at the new map and the master plan that had where some existing locations are and where some new locations are, and I was just curious why maybe more of those athletic facilities weren't being considered towards the east, but I see, and I couldn't tell that from the master plan document I have open on my computer, but you already have those activities already on the eastern border. Yeah.
And on the top right, also where you might have been seeing, when you look back at this, when you look at the overall GIS, I mean, again, intentionally, we were not expanding the use adjacent to our Alberta Drive neighbors, where Mr. Hughes came and spoke from. We intentionally weren't adding anything, anything in that particular area. So that's why you don't see something in the top right,
I
is
see.
because we were specifically trying to stay away from that.
I see.
But thank you for your question. I know when you go back and forth, sometimes you can
Yeah.
lose where
And
things are.
you can't go into that 85-foot undisturbed buffer, which
Regardless.
is from the stadium, the football field up to the yellow line that backs up to Alberta Drive. I live a mile north of Sprayberry High School, and I hear them on Friday nights.
Sure.
And even the announcer, you can hear them announcing the plays and the, not that it's bad, but I'm just saying I can hear them a mile away.
Exactly.
And, like I said, there are no lights here, so you can't really play on the field once it's dark. And this is the first I've heard of the bouncing on the wall, but that's why I want to walk the property with the neighbors, with the East Cobb Civic, and just kind of go over everything and see what we need to add or adjust to complete the STIP letter and the master plan.
We'd be happy
as
to do that
proposed.
and put together a new master stipulation letter. We weren't changing any stipulations. We were just doing a master plan
Right.
approval. But if the direction is, let's come up with, let's just put in place all of them in one letter, we're happy to do that.
Okay. Well, that would be my motion to hold it till the December 17th BOC zoning hearing.
Okay, any further discussion? Call the question? I second it. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
One more case, I can't believe this. That's it. Thanks to Commissioner Sheffield.
Oh,
Are you going to give them a minute to clear the room?
Yes. For those of you who are here in the meeting room, our zoning hearing is still in progress. So we just ask that you take conversation outdoors so we can begin our next matter. Thank you so much and happy Thanksgiving.
This is the PowerPoint. What do I need this for? Oh, there's my clicker. It's this one.
You can begin whenever you're ready.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, start.
All right, next case on the agenda is other business item number 74 of 2024, which is to consider a stipulation and site plan amendment for Riverview Associates Limited regarding cases Z49 of 2008 and Z102 of 2016. The property is located at the northwesterly intersection of Cobb Parkway and Paces Mill Road in land lots 976, 977, 1016, and 1017 of the 17th District. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 74? Please keep your hands raised. Okay, let the record show there's 4 people here in opposition to other business item number 74. Is there anyone here in support of other business item number 74? Please stand and raise your hands.
Support.
You got 2?
2.
Let the record show there's 2 people here in support. All those who wish to address the board either for or against the application, please come forward to be sworn in.
And John, just to specify, there were 5 people, I believe, that were in opposition.
Man, why y'all do? Sorry. No, tease, I'd rather be accurate. Yeah, exactly. What are you gonna do? Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Kevin Moore here on behalf of Riverview Associates, the owner and applicant, for this application for other business. This property is zoned RRC. I wanted to highlight it for you very quickly. Its location on Cobb Parkway at the intersection of Paces Mill Road. This is an existing shopping center, had a Kroger and many shops and restaurants that are a part of this existing shopping center property. It's about 17 to 18 acres. It's right before you get to the river, hence the name Riverview Associates. That has been zoned RRC. It was first approved in 2008 for a redevelopment. Okay, this shopping center's been there for number of years. First approved in 2008, and it came back again, in 2016, which was the most recent time for another approval for essentially what is a redevelopment, not essentially, which would be a redevelopment of this property. There we go. Go ahead, flip. Hold on. There we we go. Now we're on track. Wanted to show you first, this is from 2016. This was approved in 2016. This is the site plan. So what we're doing with this other business is we're coming in for a new site plan. And the site plan that's before you was the one that was approved in 2016. This plan had retail on a, let's call it on a ground floor with residential over, and it also had an office building or an office tower. But what's important here is kind of some of the numbers associated with that. This plan had 216 multifamily units and about 80,000 square feet of retail, which included a grocer and other retail shops and restaurants, as well as an office component. On the far right of this site plan is that office tower. That office tower was 220,000 gross square feet, 180,000 square feet net of office. It was an office tower that was 9 stories in height on top of what would have been 6 or 7 stories of parking deck. Since 2016, we've had a couple of very major changes in the market and environment caused by things that we all are familiar with now. And we know what office has become or not become or where it is in terms of how you would go about building a brand new office building. You can do it in certain locations here. As we are moving forward now with the redevelopment, it was determined that building a 220,000 square foot office building at this location now is not something that would be received in the market. So we've moved forward with a new plan for development. I actually believe the new plan is far better. It's far better from an aesthetic standpoint. We believe it's far better from an overall development standpoint. And I think you'll hear that even from some of those who are, quote, standing in opposition. So let me go through what the plan shows you now. Now on the right-hand side, what we've done is we've taken out the office tower component, and instead we've put in a hotel with 70 high-end residential multifamily units would be a hotel. And on the first floor of that hotel, if you think about a really high-end hotel building, it's going to have a ground floor of retail, restaurant as part of that hotel building. That's about 24,000 square feet of retail and restaurant. The balance of the property, what you see to the left going to Paces Mill Road, is the additional retail, including grocer, and a redesigned and reimagined how that all fits together with, again, the multifamily units on top of that. And so this is where it is terraced from Paces Mill Road around to Cobb Parkway, and a development that we think will look fantastic. And so let's talk about a moment, though, about what we are proposing. So at the end of the day, what we're proposing is a 130-key hotel, a total of 290 multifamily units across this development, and a total of 110,000 square feet of retail/grocer restaurants square footage. For your information, those are negotiated. We first filed this application at the beginning of this year and subsequently withdrew that application because we were having discussions with the Vinings Village Homeowners Association, and while they were progressing, they weren't really getting to where we needed to be. So we decided to withdraw the application, but continue those discussions and continued them through yesterday and today as we continue to talk and work with it and got to the place we are. Initially, we were proposing over 300 apartment units. Initially, we were proposing over 120,000 square feet of retail. What we did is negotiated amongst ourselves, tried to understand each other, and tried to understand the impacts of what was being proposed. And so we brought it to this level that's in front of you today as where we believe it needs to be in order for us to achieve the minimum economic requirements for this to be successful development. When you're doing a $275 million redevelopment, it does need to make sure it meets those economic thresholds for us, and that's understandable, and we worked very well with Vinings Village on that to reduce some of the impacts that were affecting the concerns that they had. But let's first look at what does this development look like, because I think that's important. And you can see what is today just a almost 80,000 square foot shopping center that was built in the 70s and 80s that you are familiar with. This is what this would become as a redevelopment. What this plan shows different even from the 2016 plan, as you can see the terracing, the plaza levels. You can also see some of the open space for community open space to be enjoyed by residents and visitors alike as you go across this property so that you can see the quality of what would be one of the gateways to Vinings itself and to Cobb County from Fulton County. We've got a couple other views of that for you so that you can see the type of development that's being proposed here, and specifically see the quality of the type of development and how it fits into the landscape that's there. You can see there to the north, the existing office buildings as you go up Cobb Parkway that are much, much higher in terms of their elevation than even we are proposing, so that you can really see that setting, because to the left is Vining. So this really provides that transition between the two. And again, as we kind of get inside this redevelopment, you can see the care and attention to detail to create plaza places, to create green areas within the development overall, so that you're not just retail, restaurant, and apartments. What you are is retail, restaurant, multifamily units, and outside living spaces and gathering spaces, so it creates a real destination place and a home. To that end, I want to show you some of the imagery that's being used by the designers for this to create the River Plaza locations, and you can kind of see exactly what they're incorporating into the overall design, both for the walkways that will be throughout that green space area inside, as it's a gathering place again, in terms of gathering stairs and areas where people can come and either take their drinks outside in terms of a cup of coffee, or come by and have a sandwich or whatever they're going to do, but places to gather and be part of a community. You can see the central area will be a town center place where all that gathering can again continue. The biggest issue that we worked through, and I want to point it out for you so that you can understand what we were doing and why we arrived at the negotiated proposal in front of you, and it really focused on one thing, and that is what is going to be the traffic impact for this redevelopment on Pace's Mill. Vinings has always been extremely protective of Pace's Mill, and particularly traffic impact on Pace's Mill. So what we did is we went through a very detailed traffic study. And so first what I'm showing you is the 2016 approved zoning plan. So what this is zoned for today and approved for today. And the hours and the trips we were looking at is not peak hours, PM or AM, but what we really looked with Vinings was the 24-hour two-ways. They have traffic all day, not just during the peak times. And so the 2016 zoning site plan and zoning has 2,052 two-way, meaning in and out, 24-hour over a 24-hour period of time for this development as approved in 2016. When we get to the proposed redevelopment in 2024, what we're proposing for you today, the 24-hour two-way trips are 1,908. So what we're proposing versus what's already approved in existence is 144 24-hour trips less per day. And that was an important factor. The proposal we first made didn't meet this threshold, and I think that's why we were able to work through this with Vinings and do so very well, as we worked to adjust our numbers to what we could live with, while also trying to make sure we impacted successfully and in a positive manner the 24-hour trips. Lastly on that, what you end up with is if you take the proposed redevelopment, what we're dealing with today, versus the existing shopping center traffic, it's only a 372 additional trips per day. That's over a 24-hour period. It's only 8 cars per hour in and out. And so what you're seeing with that is a proposal that we came in and thought very intentionally about it to create a real destination for this particular area, one that we worked with Vinings Village on to create additional and new stipulations, which are encapsulated in our stipulation letter that we worked with them, and also to do this, to ensure that our proposed redevelopment now versus what's existing today actually provides less traffic impact on that critical Paces Mill Road. And that's what we were successful in achieving with what's proposed to you today, and we respectfully request your approval. Thank you.
We'll now hear from opposition, and just keep in mind you'll have 10 minutes in total.
The timer is on the podium, okay. Sir. Sir, timer is on the podium for you to keep track of your time. That's it.
I'm Bill Milkey with the Vinings Village Homeowners Association. This is Melissa Johnson, who is the president of the Vinings Homeowners Association. Today I'm representing Vinings Village Homeowners Association members, as well as a coalition of neighborhood homeowner associations and homeowners that may be impacted by OB 74. That coalition includes approximately 143 residential properties located on Stillhouse Road and on Paces Mill Road. First, we wish to affirm that Vinings supports the renovation, so why am I here, but you'll find out, or redevelopment of Riverview Village, and has concluded that improvements to this property serve the interests of Greater Vinings. Over the past year, we've worked with the developer to address our collective concerns, primarily regarding density and traffic. We are pleased to report those discussions have been positive, and the developer has considered our input in the revised site plan and accompanying stipulation letter. However, while we support the project, there are a few remaining items we wish to bring to your attention. Vinings Village represents a unique traffic challenge because on average there are 30 trains traveling through Vinings each day. Since 2016, the trains have become increasingly longer due to more efficient engines, with many being up to 2 miles in length. Train crossings create considerable traffic backups in both directions on Paces Mill and Paces Ferry roads. After a train passes through, the result is speeding cars on Paces Mill Road traveling towards Cobb Parkway to make up for lost time. The first issue we have is the proposed density. The developer has met the traffic agreement reached with the 2016 site plan to add fewer than 600 additional vehicle trips on Paces Mill from the development. However, we still believe the density is very intense and request consideration for further reduction. As Kevin stated, the 2016 approval was for 216 residential units. OB 74 site plan increases it to 290 units. The 2016 approval was for 80,000 square feet of retail. OB 74 increases it to 110,000 square feet. And a hotel has been substituted for the office building, for which we have no issue. The second issue is Cobb DOT's requirement of a left turn lane into the development from Paces Mill. We fully agree with the requirement and are not in favor of granting a waiver for that requirement. Let's see, is that the first slide?
This is the first.
Yeah, okay. We prepared slides to illustrate the necessity for a left turn lane. This aerial slide shows the existing retail center. This is Paces Mill and US 41. Can you point to Paces Mill? That's Paces Mill, and then the vertical is Cobb Parkway. Can you go to, and if you look, yeah, go to the next one. This is a close-up of that, of the entrance drives along Paces Mill. Both of these curb cuts, that one and the one closest to Cobb, will remain for the proposed development. Can you go to the next slide? This slide this is the right one. This slide shows the proposed development superimposed on the site. These are the same access points on Paces Mill. Cars coming from Vinings will enter the retail center, including the grocery store, at the entrance further away from Cobb Parkway, that one. The next slide, please. This slide is a blow-up of the new development superimposed on the site. It also shows the backup that will occur without the addition of a right turn lane. As you can see, that's a fairly narrow street, and this entrance will be the primary entrance for delivery trucks as well as retail, restaurant, and grocery store customers from Vinings, as well as an entrance for residents living in the development. The entrance closest to the traffic signal will become a right-in, right-out only curb cut, as DOT has determined, rightly so, that it should be. In summary, we believe that a deceleration left turn lane is necessary for traffic control on Paces Mill, excuse me. Third issue, yeah. The third issue relates to a proposed walking trail and pedestrian bridge extending north over the ring road from the residential structure. Can you back up a slide? Can you point out the bridge? We are asking the developer to reconsider this feature. The residents on Stillhouse Road oppose the bridge and trail due to potential privacy and security risks from people and dogs having access to their properties. We believe a fair alternative is to either erect a fence to separate the bridge and walking trail from the Stillhouse neighborhood, or place a ground level fenced dog park between the residential structures and the hotel. The last slide is the final issue. It's a request from the 4 townhome neighborhood HOAs on Paces Mill. They requested that DOT prioritize adding a sidewalk along the northern side of Paces Mill Road from Stillhouse Road to the new development. While there is a sidewalk along the south side of Paces Mill, it is not a good or safe alternative for walking to this new development due to the heavy traffic on Paces Mill. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Are there any additional speakers? There's a balance of 2.5 minutes left. Okay, not seeing any. I'll turn things over to the district commissioner.
Thank you. And just want to say, wow, yeah, no, I absolutely appreciate the very hard collaboration work that you all have been taking on, and certainly the insight provided. A couple of questions do come up. I'm going to start with DOT's recommendation with the left turning lane, and some questions around the waiver and the recommendation itself, and then I'll look for clarification from the applicant.
Florum, DOT.
Hello, and thank you. So just a question around the left turn lane and the recommendation there. Just give a background for the commissioners as well, and what's being proposed, and then I will go from there.
So the recommendation for both entrances on Paces Mill is to have a left turn lane and a right turn lane, or an improved radius. Obviously, the one closest to Cobb Parkway wouldn't be able to have a left turn lane, is too close. We already discussed to keep that as a right in, right out, and an improved radius so that cars can maneuver into the property. The one westernmost on Paces Mill, we have recommended a right turn lane and a left turn lane. However, there's topographical issues that were brought up to us by the consultant, and we said in lieu of, when they come to plan review, they will have to prove to us that the left turn lane is not feasible. Mm-hmm. And we have a method by which we review those cases in a case-by-case matter. And there's a memorandum that we issued to the consultants, and they know what we are looking for, what information we need. And they will provide that to us at the appropriate time or when they have it ready. And then our traffic operations team will review it and either deny it or waive the left turn lane. In some cases, for example, if there's limited right-of-way or if there's topographical issues that prohibit the construction of the left turn lane or the right turn lane, we consider those on a case-by-case basis.
Excellent, and because I was going to ask about some of the criteria as well for a waiver being granted, because I know that's the desire on the applicant's side. But
and usually it is topographical issues or hardship that can be waived. It's not that it's too costly, that it wouldn't be a matter into consideration.
Understood. Okay. And then with regards to the traffic study comparisons, and I'm going to ask for clarification as well, but it looks as though a component of the project has fewer trips, but the overall project has more trips. Can you just help me?
I think they were
Square that.
concentrated on the Paces Mill leg.
Okay.
And so I didn't focus on that, but the overall development does increase trips. And
372. it
Right,
seems.
but they have performed a traffic study, and we accepted it, and we agree with their conclusions.
Understood. Okay. And then this question did come up, but my assumption is no, but the size of the units, does that factor into traffic studies at all?
Not the size of the units, just the trip generation per use. So we look at the shopping center, how much the retail, how much the housing, the
Right.
hotel will bring in.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, are there other questions for Lucia?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, if the applicant could come up. So there were,
Yes, Commissioner.
thank you. There are several concerns that were brought up related to both traffic, some screening components, and density. So with regards to the left turn lane, just curious on why there's the desire to go for the waiver. I mean, we know Paces Mill has its issues. What is the applicant's position on the left turn lane and why?
All right, so our position is we support and have agreed with DOT's recommendations and comments per their analysis. If we go to the GIS and perhaps zoom in, at that particular location, which is kind of near our bottom property line. Once you come in, you start seeing the road network there as Paces Mill reaches Cobb Parkway. We also need to ensure that there's left turn lane ability there and left traffic movement coming from Vining, so Vining's residents can access what we think will be a wonderful location. The issue is one that our traffic and engineering consultants and professionals have identified that there may not be sufficient right-of-way room to install a full dedicated left turn lane just for that one entrance location. There's a bridge, there's a creek there, and there's a bridge that's there, that's outside of our property in the right-of-way. And so they've identified that as a potential issue. As you can see, as you're approaching Cobb Parkway, going left to right on your screen on Paces Mill, the road opens up. And there's a full left-hand turn lane that extends from Cobb Parkway all the way down to where this driveway would be, almost. So there is either going to be, I suspect what it would be is once you spend all the hundreds of thousands of dollars through the engineering and get to the process that DOT calls for, DOT just knows there could be an issue. They have a standard that says a left turn lane dedicated and so many feet and so forth should be installed here. But they also have a process and a procedure where if you can meet their criteria for a hardship, they have a process in-house that they do that with. That's part of what they do, and it's a waiver process, and they've simply indicated in their comments that the waiver process would have to be sought if a full left-hand turn lane would not be installed for whatever reason, and you'd have to meet that criteria. And we just want to follow that process and follow that with them, because we think the possibility could exist, and it may have to be a shorter left-hand turn lane or some modifications to it. And we're happy to do that and work through the DOT and our professionals to reach that point. It's just something that DOT already has that process because it's a very, as she said, it's something that's highly technical from a traffic engineering and traffic safety standpoint, and one that we're prepared to undertake if needed. Also, this board, if this is approved, I'm sure we'll have the district commissioner approve the final site plan, of which that would be a component, of which would be shared with Vinings Village. So all of this will be in a very transparent, open manner, and you can see that we've all discussed. So that was a long answer, but it gets kind of really down into those weeds and details. The end answer is we support DOT's process, we support DOT's comments and their recommendations, which simply say you're not gonna be given a waiver. You're gonna have to request it, go through a process, and be determined if that's warranted or not, because it's impossible to build. That's the threshold, really.
So what you're articulating is that the applicant is willing to put in a left turn lane?
If it can fit, yes. If it's possible, we'd love it. We'd
Right.
love to. We
But
just
that-
don't want to be in the position
That
where
would
it's
be
not
the case
possible.
under any zoning, not necessarily
Yes.
providing that caveat. It would be there isn't a desire to lead with a waiver. It's more of
No.
a final
That's correct.
determination. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, I appreciate that clarification.
Sure.
And then, with regards to the walking trail,
Yes.
what came of that conversation with providing some type of additional screening? Because I know there's screening provided for other components of this
There are. Yeah.
site plan, but for what has been brought up by some of the neighbors on the bridge.
Can I go to the screen so I can show you, because you're thinking I know you're familiar as the district commissioner, but I want to make sure everybody knows where we're talking about, and I'll provide that. All right, turning to the site plan, just to reorient you again, Cobb Parkway, Pace's Mill. We have proposed it's a amenity to the future residents. It's not what I would call a public amenity. It's an amenity to the future residents that would be here. There's a creek here, there would be a pedestrian bridge and a walking trail that just go right behind this portion of the property here. That walking trail, just so there's woods back there. Like I said, we're developing 8 acres of an almost 17, 18 acre site. All of this is undisturbed as part of this plan. This is simply a walking trail, so it's an amenity, so to speak, for the residents. If they want to get out, have a little place to go walk a dog, or just go walk for a minute outside, it gives them a place to do that as an amenity. And it's just a way we can utilize what are beautifully wooded area here. But the big issue is one of elevation change. From this location going in this direction, which is actually north, the residents on Stillhouse Lane are located off this page. It's straight uphill. So the nearest home to where this is located is about 300 feet away and about 60 to 70 feet straight up. So the reason why the trail cuts back along the bottom here is because you're going straight uphill. And let me just show you the picture of that. So this was a picture taken from our property, and you can see the fence here. This is that nearest home way up through the woods there, and you can see through this the dramatic elevation change going up. And this is about 50 feet or more, maybe even 100 feet away from where the trail would actually be located, just to give you that perspective of what we're talking about with that issue. So when we looked at it, number one, where the trail would be located, if it's built, it's completely screened. There'd be a waste of money and resources to screen it further because it's completely remote, completely screened, not even near where the homes are located. We would not be interrupting or even invading any sort of privacy that they have. They have fences. It's fenced and for their homes. And it's so far below down the hill. While we would love to work with them on that issue, it's one that we'd just be wasting money to build a fence. We'd be wasting money to do anything. And if we simply don't do one and agree that we won't have a walking trail, then we've just given these neighbors who haven't purchased it 9 acres of property. And that doesn't seem fair either. So that's why we couldn't do anything on that aspect of it.
Okay, and as a kind of corollary to that, to the line of questioning, what security provisions are available for the walking trail if what's in mind are the residents at the location?
From a security standpoint, it would be whatever our consultants provide us with. In fact, one of the stipulations that we have agreed to, and this was one that was actually recommended by Vining's Village Homeowner Association. We thought it was great because of their local precinct commander there had recommended that for new developments such as this, that we meet with them ahead of time and develop a security plan for lighting and security measures, and that we incorporate their recommendations as part of our plans. And so we've actually stipulated that we'll meet with the local precinct and go over our plans with them so that they can have that appropriate input on the front end and not trying to solve problems on the back end, but because of their experience. So my answer is, whatever the police precinct commander thinks is the best thing to do there, whether it's lighting or security measures, but it will be a secure location in terms of it's not available to the public. It'll be available access for the residents only. So it's secure from that standpoint.
Those were my thoughts as well. And then as far as density, I understand that this is really just a negotiated point to where it's been landed. We're still 370 trips above what was approved, and I know that was you and I both know that was a sticking point in 2016, one of the, deep negotiations on that. And so, yeah, that, it's just a,
Yeah, so
you can speak to that. You're
what
welcome
we've
to.
achieved is actually 144 less total trips on Pace's Mill versus the 2016 approval. So what it's approved for today, if you were to approve this as a board today, we would reduce the trips, reduce the traffic impact on Pace's Mill Road when you compare those two. If you compare it to the current 80,000 square foot, 1970, 80 style shopping center, there's only 372 more trips. And that's total trips in the 24-hour period. If we're looking at this as a total, understand this, the impact that traffic engineers and the DOT typically look at, in fact, 99 times out of 100, they're looking at the AM and PM peak times. When traffic's the worst is what they want to control for and mitigate. So if you look at the AM and PM peak times of what's proposed now versus what it is already approved for from 2016, we're actually reducing the impact in the AM and PM peak times because of the office component. When you remove 180,000 square feet of office, you have removed a huge AM and PM peak driver. So overall, this is better from a traffic impact standpoint than the approved plan today.
Okay, and just question, because chalk it up to I'm not an expert on this, but our traffic studies, the traffic study that was done, did that consider the left turn lane? What impact, I'm thinking of stacking that might occur in that lane. Does the traffic study look at that?
The left turn lane on Pace's Mill, you may want to ask DOT.
Okay,
Because
I will.
on that specific of a question, she's going to know more than I am.
Right,
What it
because Pace's
studied, it
Mill
would have
is the
studied
discussion here.
access and at all locations and had their recommendations for it. But it would, again, the left turn lane we want to be able to turn left on Pace's Mill into this development.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So we don't really disagree that much with Vinings. We just want to be able to do it. If we can't do it, we don't want to be stuck. We'll have to reach another accommodation.
And you're primarily looking at right-of-way availability?
Yes.
Okay. All right, any other questions for Kevin? I am going to bring DOT back up to just
Sure, thank you.
provide some insight. Any other? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. With the goal of that left turn being there, do we know what impact that has as well?
So right now in the traffic study is showing that 35 vehicles will be making that left in the peak hour and 44 in the AM and the 44 in the PM, that left. So we do want the left turn lane. I think we're all in agreement that it is needed there. It's just if they have any constraints, we're going to do the best of a situation, right? It might be that we meet the taper. There has to be this is a 35-mile-per-hour road, so it requires a 50-foot minimum taper and 150 typical storage of lanes. So that will be 200 feet of distance. So they might not have enough distance before they get to the bridge without widening that bridge to cover those 200 feet. So it could be that during plan review, we determine that it will be 50-foot taper and 100 foot instead of 150 of storage or 50 of storage to accommodate those vehicles that we're expecting to be making that left so that they can get out of the way of the vehicles going straight.
So, other question, can that analysis only be done in site plan review, or can that be determined prior to?
They can go into more detail as, at your direction. But at the zoning, usually they don't go into that much detail. They wait till they have construction plans and more information. But in some cases, we do make them make that analysis and see if they do have enough distance.
Thank you, thank you. Any other questions for Lehia? All right.
Thank you.
Great. And then I know certainly the other issue brought up was around the sidewalks, which I believe, and you're welcome to come back up as an applicant. The portion that is on the property, there's the willingness to put that part of the sidewalk there.
Yes, absolutely. And we were in agreement with them as well on that point, and that is installation of curb gutter and sidewalk along Paces Mill along our frontage. The segment they're talking about is just beyond that as it goes from there, that's off of our property.
No, much appreciated, and I
Sure.
know that's something the county will have to consider
Sure.
as well. So, all right, well, any other
Thank you.
questions? Okay, thank you. So, kind of gave hints to it on what it is I'm likely going to do. General comments here. Like I said, I absolutely appreciate the collaboration. It shows in the presentation, just all the different pieces there. I'm inclined to hold this until December for a final decision. There are two things that I am looking to have come back just under review, and one is the left turn lane. I want to know if that's something that we can actually accomplish so that we can all be mindful going into potentially site plan review, and then for a potential approval. And then secondly, would like to see a security plan put forward as well. Doesn't necessarily have to be every single detail, but certainly the general components of it, I would like for a conversation with the precinct so that we can pull some of that forward, understand what we're looking at, so that we can provide the residents some amount of protection, or at least knowing what would be proposed for this application. So that is where I am leaning.
I'll second it for discussion. Question for Ligia.
Yes, ma'am.
Can they make the left turn review in 30 days? Or is that typically something that takes longer to achieve? I'm not sure what the scope of the study is and engineering that has to be done, but is that something that can be achieved in 30 days?
I think they should be able to. It depends on their consultant. They should be able to lay out what it is, how much of a left turn lane, and where, and give us their recommendation. Present it to us, say, this is what we can offer you as a left turn lane. See if they can fit the 100-foot and 150-foot, which is the normal left turn lane required, or what is it that they can fit. And that will be up to the applicant to know whether they can produce that.
Thank you. Kevin, I think you know that means you got to come back up. Is that something that you can participate in and help accommodate for the next, for December 17th?
Absolutely. If that's what you're asking us to do, then we'll figure out how to get that done.
Okay, thank you. All right. We're still in discussion. Okay. You want me to call? Those are all of my questions then, thank you.
All right, commissioners, I see that there's no more discussion. We'll call the question. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you. I believe we are concluded for today, John. Is that the last case? Very good. Thank you all for tuning in. This is our last zoning hearing before Thanksgiving, and hope that you all have a very happy and enjoying holiday. Thank you.